Hey guys. This is what if Naruto has Byakugan and Emotionless. Her face. I remember her face. A boy trained to kill is brought into the light. Gray, different Naruto heavily stealth-based and root-trained, but not in the traditional sense. How will he cope with that most dangerous of foes, emotion? Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 1. A Meeting of Minds. Some years after the Kyuubi attack, the Fire Lord's castle, he waited. It was something he was good at. The courtyard before him was abuzz with movement, sound, color, and light. Guests in great formal kimonos, elegant silk and polished jewelry spread around the courtyard. Hurried servants in the colors of their lord also moved about swiftly, trying to stay out of the way and out of sight. They carried platters of sweetmeats, and piles of pastries and thin flutes of bubbling drink. A part of him was offended at their slow, clumsy movements. The clothing was all wrong for the task, the orange cloth ungainly and offensively bright. He mentally shuddered at the color. What kind of idiot wore that for work? Mentally, he plotted courses that would work better. He worked out supply routes that would be more out of sight, or methods of improving efficiency. He worked out their rotation systems and balked silently at the crudity of it, and how bad they were at keeping it. His single visible eye picked out more details he already knew. The guards were patrolling diligently, their patterns obvious and easy to decipher and avoid. So far he had picked his way past several such patrols. His progress had been almost comically easy. After all, ninja were meant to be stealthy. They were meant to be good at details. The window overlooked all of the entrances to the courtyard, and was brightly lit, a great beacon of welcome, a great centerpiece of the great castle that the daimyo occupied. At the base, a squad of elite samurai stood guard over the great oak doors to the tower. At the top, half a dozen more made sure nobody could get to the top, without being visible themselves in the glory of the light that shone from it. It was so brightly lit, and so well guarded that nobody had bothered to check the small, dingy window about halfway up, which was darkened to glorify the majesty of the top of the tower. The candles nearby only existed to let people slightly know what they were doing. Any guard worth his salt could climb those stairs in the dark anyway. The flickers on the wall behind pleased him as he waited. After all, they didn't show his shadow. He ran black-gloved hands over his weapon. The crossbow was an antiquated and little-used weapon in the world at large, when opponents tended to see you before you could fire, and it being as good at close range as a caramel dagger, nobody really bothered to use it. It was also slow to reload, at second or two of downtime where a dozen shuriken and kunai could be thrown, and that was with a skilled practitioner. But it was compact, powerful, and more than capable of taking out anyone who didn't suspect it. More importantly, with a little bit of extra modification and just a touch of chakra, things could be made a little more different. His eye flicked to the grand archway that led into the courtyard. It took in the fine marble work and its foundations, working out angles and determining the best places to put explosives should he need to take it down if he wanted to use it for his mission. He flicked to the flagstones on the courtyard. Foundations, tunnels, gas attacks with smoke to disguise his movements. Surprise Doton Jutsu maybe. His mind was less a mind than a thinking engine, programmed to work out the quickest way to complete his job, and every other way possible, and the probability of success for every possibility. Kept the mind sharp. He eased his finger into the trigger grip of the bow. It was nearly time. The bell atop the tower began to toll. Bong! The chatter from the crowd became quieter as the first blow reverberated and the event began in earnest. Bong! A silence fell as they turned towards the archway. The figure in the tower pulled his long hood up over his head, hanging it at an angle so that his visible eye was left uncovered and the other kept further into the dark. Bong! The first figures emerged in the archway. The figure in the tower placed his hands together as if in prayer. Bong! The figure whispered a few syllables before taking hold of his weapon once more. The entrance party made its way around the corner. Bong! The figure brought the butt of the crossbow to his shoulder. It fit like a glove, the stock shaped to fit his figure. He slowed his breathing down as far as he could to decrease any movement. Bong! The figure shut his visible eye and prepared himself. Bong! The target became visible to the naked eye as he passed the great masonry archway. Clad in a rich robe trimmed with animal pelts, he was every inch the vision of a prince. He waved to all around him, blowing a kiss into a group of tittering ladies. Bong! The figure stopped to absorb the crowd's adulation. There was barely a whisper as the finger twitched the fire mechanism. Bong! The daimyo's son fell to the ground as the bell sounded. People looked over to see what had happened. The crossbow was swung back to hang on his back as the figure began flying through hand seals. Bang! The first guard reached the daimyo's son and saw the crossbow bolt sticking out of his chest, having pierced the armor under the robe, straight into his heart. He looked to the tower where the bolt had been fired from, the fact obvious from the angle the bolt had it. Bang! The guards in the tower moved to sweep it clear from top and bottom. The figure leapt upwards as he heard the clatter of iron boots on the stairs. Bang! Midnight struck, and the guards met in the middle of the tower. There has to be someone here. There can't be, they'd have to be invisible. Even shinobi can't do that. They must have somehow got past, locked down the castle. All the guards moved off efficiently down the stairs. As the door at the bottom slammed shut and was locked, the figure dropped silently from the ceiling, deactivating his jutsu. He walked slowly up to the tower to once again wait. Knowing the guards, they would leave the next day to search the nearby countryside for anyone suspicious. By then, he could be long gone. He pulled the hood off his head, stroking a dark gloved hand through his blonde hair. Another job done, another target taken out for his lord and nation. His footfalls were like a child's, light and making barely any noise. Mainly because they were the footsteps of a child. The hooded cloak rippled softly behind him as he moved up the tower. It was difficult to describe the color of the cloak. Black wasn't right. It was close. It was more of a dark gray, then a deep, deep green and a midnight blue. It was like a shadow, like raw darkness. He reached the top of the tower and shut off the great light at the top. Nobody would really notice with the guards running everywhere. Finding the darkest corner in the room, he pulled the cloak around him in a practiced movement. His hands cast the genjutsu that would smooth the darkness around him just in case anyone tried to find him again. He allowed himself the luxury of a smile. Uzumaki Naruto did what he was best. And waited. A day or so later, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his office, watching out of the window as the sun set beyond the monument. The sight was beautiful, and the day's sunset was a beautiful pinkish red that tinged the clouds in the sky. He sighed. It was a great sign of peace to see such a sight, and such a shame that he was about to deal with his own proverbial devil that haunted the nights beyond his reach. The figure didn't bother knocking. It was on schedule, and he knew that Sarutobi kept nights like this free for such occasions. Near silent footfalls moved him across the floor to stand alongside him. They stood in silence together. It wasn't really what you'd call comfortable silence. It wasn't all that tense either. It was a silence filled with grudging respect. Do you think Sensei chose right, Danzo? You always ask this, Hiruzen. We both know what I'll say. One of us had to be the poster boy. One of us had to do the unthinkable. I could never do what you do. I couldn't order death so clinically, so easily. I may not like it, but I do need you, and I couldn't really do what you do, Hiruzen. I lack the gentle touch. I think I could be Hokage someday, though. Hiruzen smiled. The conversation repeated itself every time they talked like this. Still, better get down to business. You know, I received a letter from the daimyo today. Danzo raised an eyebrow, his face a picture of innocent surprise. What news from our lord? Apparently his son was murdered during his coming-of-age party. In his very fortress. All the security measures were in place. It has come as quite a shock. Sounds tragic. Indeed, shot in the heart with a crossbow bolt that penetrated the underarmor he was wearing. The shot fired from a tower window where nobody could possibly have been. Sounds like poor guard work to me. Apparently so. He has written to me requesting a squad of ninja to protect him like the 12 guardian ninja did. Just in case the attacker tries to strike again. How prudent, indeed. He should be careful after the problems with the previous group, though. No doubt you will warn him of such issues? Of course, couldn't have harm come to him for the sake of our reputation. Hiruzen puffed on his pipe. The smoke rose lazily through the warm evening air. It also appears that when the maid staff went to clean his son's chambers, various bits of incriminating evidence to a number of crimes was found. Shocking. The son of a daimyo corrupted into breaking the law. The list makes for some reading, of course. Corruption, embezzlement, connection to various guilds, rape, working with missing nin to assassinate people who got in his way. Associations with people of ill repute as well. Horrifying. Kidnap as well. Seems he wanted to raise a private army. A silly ambition. No private army could go undetected by you, Hiruzen. The both smiled at the in-joke between the two. Could you imagine what would happen if he had become daimyo when his father passes on? Long may he live. I guess he would try and become Hokage himself, through a puppet, of course. Of course. Silly boy. I almost suspect that his father is secretly pleased he has been removed, shall we say, from the world. Is that why there has been no substantial search for the perpetrator? I'm sure they'll be found soon enough. They stood in silence once more. Danzo, you've been good if sometimes worrying counsel since I had to retake this position. You know I am thankful I have you behind me, even if I do suspect you may one day stick a knife into my back, and have several plans ready to do so. It's what friends do. I think. I was never good at friendships. How is the root program? Much as before. Numbers are still necessarily low, but missions are at an all-time high success rate. I think I've only had to take drastic action once in the last month. Fortunately, it went without a hitch. My latest operative returned a couple of nights ago after a successful mission. It was fairly simple for him. Any more detail you'd care to share? Oh, nothing too important. Just dealing with a silly man whose death makes the world a better place. Silence again as Hiruzen added a fresh plug of rich tobacco to the pipe. How is he? Naruto? The Hokage thumped the table suddenly before relaxing his arm. No, one of your other unnamed operatives. Of course, Naruto. The words sounded exasperated and rehearsed, but Danzo suspected he could hear the slightest touch of anxiety and care behind them. It was hard to tell. He is doing well. I've never met anyone with a more natural aptitude for stealth in my life. It serves him well. Analyze him for me. Give me a breakdown of strengths and weaknesses. He's quick thinking, excellent at long mid-range and, as I said, stealthy. Damn quiet and has fairly good genjutsu skills. It's interesting actually. I didn't teach him any per se, but he made one that helps him blend into the darkness. Very interesting. Interesting indeed. Weaknesses? Straight up fighting. He doesn't have all that much up close and personal, and he's not hugely strong. He is in taijutsu maybe genin level at best. He doesn't like ninjutsu either but can use the basic 3. Although give him a kunai and a place to hide, and unless the person he's going to kill has very sharp senses, they will probably die. He's not a shinobi like the ones we know then. He's a specialist. If anything, he's cold-blooded assassin material. But you knew all of this, Hiruzen. Not a meeting has passed since you entrusted him to me that you haven't asked after him. I understand why, of course. How do you think he'd do in a genin team? Danzo stroked his chin. Not sure. He's not what you'd call social. Explain. The word was more questioning than accusative. Root is not really a good place for a child to grow up. You knew that as well as I did when you gave him to me that night. You revealed you knew it hadn't shut down. I had to bring you slightly to heal. I figured he'd be safer with you than on his own once the orphanages stopped wanting him. Although I haven't done any emotional conditioning on him of the type I'd usually do, I suspect he'll find being around others more difficult. He would have hated the academy. Hiruzen motioned for him to continue. More or less every operation I've sent him on has been on his own. Pretty much necessity. He relies purely on stealth, and anyone else would have compromised that. When he gets back to the base, he spends his time training or alone. He doesn't talk to many people, even the recruits his own age. When he does talk, it's to the point. He's very good at waiting. The Hokage took a folder off his desk and handed it to Danzo. The profiles of the probable graduates from this year's academy students. Arrange them into the teams you think would work best. Danzo drew a small table over from the side of the room and quickly scanned each document. Hiruzen smiled as he watched his oldest friend's mind apply itself to the problem. It was something Danzo had always been better at than he had. When Hiruzen saw a problem, his brain saw one route, then had difficulty finding others when it was obvious. Danzo's mind was capable of working out all the routes, then finding the one which worked best. Even if that meant a few deaths that a different route could have avoided. The papers ruffled as Danzo placed the various profile sheets in groups of 3. He stood up as Hiruzen inspected them. Interesting. Mostly similar to the way the instructors and I felt. Now then, he passed Danzo a sheet which simply had the word Naruto written on it. What if Naruto were added to the class? Danzo set to work again. Sheets moved rapidly from pile to pile. Groups were made and split rapidly. Hiruzen watched the dance of the paper carefully. Danzo straightened. It's more difficult than it should be, I'll give you that. I assume you don't mind me shoving 4 of the no-hopers into a jumbo team? If you think it best. Right. Then these are the teams. Hiruzen studied the bits of paper. Interesting. Care to offer any sort of explanation? I felt that, he shifted a few bits of paper around, would be far more optimal for his development. Danzo shrugged. Depends what risk level you want, really. Putting him with the Yamanaka girl risks her going into his head and discovering things that neither of us would like to see made public. After all, forcing Inochi to mind suppress his own daughter would be bad for morale. As for the Hyuga girl, I don't think she would react well to 1 or 2 of the truths around him. Plus she's too shy. How, please, your configuration has him with a pair of extroverts. It's clear you're trying to drag him out of his shell a little in your scheme. You read me like a book. Look, As it stands, there is no proper place for Naruto to go that doesn't disrupt some team dynamic somewhere. He wouldn't fit properly with most of these kids. The Hyuga is too shy, the Inuzuka too brash, the Yamanaka too risky, the Nara would work him out too quickly, which is to say eventually. The Akimichi child doesn't fit his strategy. The Aburame kid might work, but that leaves the other teams heavily out of balance. At some stage, there will be an issue with all of these teams. To be honest, one of them is going to get slightly screwed over, and it is likely to be the one with him in it. He's not a team worker. They stood in silence. There is another way we can do this, Hiruzen, and that is, make him a one-man cell. After all, that's what he has been for so long now, and I don't think teamwork is going to be something he'll take to fast enough. I'll continue to train him, and we give him more specialized missions, such as tailing teams that are on higher-ranked missions. If he needs to intervene, he will. If he is discovered by an enemy, he'll fall back, and they'll assume he's just an ANBU. If the Konoha team discovers him, then he'll use a coded phrase like the ones ANBU used to identify himself. Hiruzen stroked his chin. He will have to be part of the regular forces. He won't be rude anymore. Although I suspect I might have to change things for him if he is in a single-man cell. I'll miss him. I might not look like it, but I do care for him. He is the closest thing to a son I have. Grant me one favor, which is, give him a choice about whether he wants to continue in secret or become a public ninja. He considered. All right, where can I find him? Danzo stared out of the great glazed windows onto the spreading buildings of Konoha. Right now, he'll probably be running through the rooftops. Chapter 2, Observation. The Hokage waited atop the tower his office stood in. He sat with his arms folded in meditation, as he focused his abilities to sense chakra. It had been far too long since he had trained this part of his skills. He waited and began to feel the world around him in the chakra. Civilians moved below like guttering candle signatures. He could feel the shinobi in the tower and around the town like fireflies moving through the light. He felt for something moving, something weak, and found it. Then it was gone. Then again, and gone. His body tensed as his mind processed what he could sense and plan. There, he moved off as quickly as slightly arthritic limbs would allow him, trying his best to focus on where the flickers of movement were coming from. He didn't follow directly. If Naruto was good, he'd know if he was being trailed. The Hokage wasn't the Hokage for no reason, and his mind soon had it worked out. There was a pattern to the movement. He followed the pattern forwards, adjusted his movements, and stopped on the rooftop as the figure landed on the other side. He couldn't tell for sure, but it looked distinctly surprised to find him waiting there. He marveled at the way the small stature blended into the shadows on top of the building. The hood was completely up and the face was hidden inside the darkness of the hood. He caught the slight ripple of the cloak behind in the breeze. How did you know, Hokage-sama? Know what Uzumaki-kun, where I was going? Then get there before me without me noticing you. He smiled. I'm the Hokage, give me some credit. First off, I can sense chakra. I must say you're very good at concealing your chakra signature given what you contain. The figure seemed to shrug. It was difficult to tell given he was barely visible in the dark. Necessary skill, indeed. From what I could sense, you were doing a rough loop around the edges of Konoha. You're avoiding some areas though. Mainly the Hyuga, Inuzuka and Aburame districts. So I worked out this was a pinch point in your route between two of the compounds. Then I saw the rooftops you could have chosen and went for the one with the second most cover. There was quiet as the breeze whispered through the rooftops of Konoha. You're good. Who taught you? I'm nearly 70 years old. You pick up some of this stuff as you go. The most covered building is almost always well guarded, so you take the second best. Nobody properly guards it, indeed. Can I go? Not yet. I am the Hokage, and whilst I know Danzo keeps little secrets like you from everyone else, I know a lot about you. For example, you are 12 years old. You have so far performed 11 missions which would be ranked BC rank in the standard system, each of them being an assassination mission, although none of them involved contact with shinobi above Chunin level, and the target each time had no shinobi training. The figure shrugged. I guess I'm good at what I do. Specialism in long range, ambush and stealth. What kind of idiot charges in blindly? There was silence again as Hiruzen contemplated the question. A dead one. It wasn't immediately obvious, but he could have sworn the figure smiled. He just couldn't pierce the darkness under the hood with his gaze. Can I go now? I have an offer for you. Not a mission? The tone sounded disappointed. I'll be plain. As it stands, you are very good at what you do. But you lack several things that I think you'll want in future that you can only really have when you're young. Such as? Now it was confused. Friends? Free time? The feeling of the sun and wind on your face? I know of these things, but do I truly need them? As it stands, you will spend your whole life in the darkness. I want you to spend some of it in the light. The figure moved slightly forwards out of the darkness. The bottom of the face under the hood was only just visible in the half-light and shadow across it. The mouth was expressionless, but the whisker marks were there. Oh, the whisker marks, he'd forgotten about those, just like when I took him from the orphanage and left him in Danzo's care. I should have done more in his life, so you offer me the chance to gain things I have not yet had? Yes, I've never found feelings to be that useful on missions. They mess up my breathing pattern when I'm aiming and distract me. Will they make me better? Hiruzen shrugged. It's your choice. But I'd rather you took it, Naruto-kun. You can always return to your old ways if you don't like it. What do you say? There was a long pause. The cloaked figure moved into a ray of light that shone from the full moon that had risen over Konoha. The moon shadow behind him swayed in the breeze as he pushed the hood back behind his head. Blonde hair, cropped short but still somehow spiky, adorned his head. The face was almost entirely emotionless, the lips a thin flat line under his nose. Hiruzen sighed as he took the image in. The eyes, of course the eyes as well. Well, the single eye he could see. In the silver moonlight, one eye was a pool of cerulean blue that shimmered like a sapphire in the light. The other eye was covered by a strip of black cloth much like the one Kakashi wore. He wondered what was under it briefly. I accept. Do I go to the academy for their graduation tomorrow? Not exactly. You won't be in a traditional team as such. With your skill set, putting you into the normal genin mold won't work. As such, you'll be shadowing the genin teams as they go on missions, intervening as you see fit. Eventually the teams will be informed of your presence, and you can interact as much as you want to. Report to the mission room at midday in 2 days. Try not to be spotted. The figure smiled. I will be there. If you can spot me. He stepped back into the darkness on the building and pulled the hood back over his head. May I go now? Yes. It's been nice to see you again, Naruto-kun, or at least one of your shadow clones. How did you know? I've pulled the shadow clone replacement trick so many times I can recognize it very fast, young Naruto. So go on and dispel to relay your conversation with the actual you. He suspected the figure nodded before it was gone again, a patch of shadowy darkness moving from roof to find a better place to dispel. His brain churned as it thought about the encounter. Was he really doing the right thing? What would Minato think of his actions? He sat on the roof and looked up towards the moon. Well, Minato-kun, I hope I have. I really do. Hopefully he'll become great like you were. He sat in the mission room as the remainder of the desk shunin left the room after finishing their scribing and recording of the day's events. His eyes were fixed on the clock that hung on the far wall above the entrance. The steady tick of the clock came with the second hand inexorably climbing towards the 12. It reached midday and kept going, as time is wont to do. Hiruzen waited a few seconds as he reached out his senses into the room. He smiled. Come out, Naruto-kun. Naruto dropped lightly from the rafters of the high ceiling and landed before him. Hokage-sama, how long have you been there? Since the briefing 2 nights ago. I can wait. Hiruzen silently marveled at the patience of the boy before him. ENBU specialists had been known to hold a position silently for hours. Jiraiya had boasted a week to him when they met up, but he was an expert spy master. Nobody looked. It's amazing how many people don't look at the ceiling, Hokage-sama. And if they had, I had a light genjutsu up, not so much to disguise me but enough to make them not notice me, or at least not want to. He nodded. His eyes took in the appearance of the young man. He was still wearing the cloak, although it was now a blotched brown. He realized it was blending with the background as he saw it. A strap crossed his chest, the vague shape of a crossbow on his back. A strap for another weapon was also there. Interesting. Your first task is to shadow a team as they take part in their Jonin Sensei's exam. It's out on Training Ground 7. Come back with a verbal report of what you see. Hi. Naruto walked up the walls and left via a roof window. Hiruzen smiled as he brought out his pipe with deft, practiced movements at odds with the arthritis that had been building in his fingers. This way I should get to hear whether Kakashi has passed this team before he comes to report. And I'll know if I can collect my winnings. He puffed gently on the pipe and relaxed. With the missions handed out, he could afford an hour or two's gentle relaxation before the paperwork started to come back in. Naruto moved quickly from rooftop to rooftop. Civilians barely looked up, and other ninja only used the rooftops if they were in a hurry. That meant they weren't paying attention, and Naruto could hide away without being spotted with ease. He approached the training grounds and took to the heavy woods that were around Ground 7 to survey the test as it took place. He got to a high branch, lay down on it, pulled the cloak over him as it took on the appearance of the leaves, and closed his visible eye and whispered, Byakugan. the world became grayscale and bigger. It is difficult to describe what is nearly 360-degree vision with any kind of accuracy because a human mind not used to it, and the brain doesn't expect its cone of vision to suddenly become different. It gets even worse when you try to marry it with normal human vision, hence keeping his normally closed. He focused the gaze mentally. The best way to describe it would be like adjusting a microscope with your mind, but whilst needing to keep totally still with one eye shut fast whilst your other is the microscope. When the world is composed of gray and chakra signatures, he could see 4 scattered ahead of him. One large signature must be the Jonin sensei. 3 smaller ones though. He mentally stopped the Byakugan and moved forwards to get a better view. He was now within 50 meters of the Jonin. White hair, headband covering the eye, and book, which is a gray that means it's orange. Well, Lord Danzo told me they were eccentric. The headband and hair mean this should be Hokage Kakashi. He's good. He looked around at the bushes, and quickly picked out the Genin team members. Have any of them done any stealth lessons? Their positions are wrong, their clothing is wrong. She's even poking her damn head out from under her cover. Idiots. Their sensei knows exactly where every single one of them is. He watched, working out how he would attack the Jonin much as the team probably were. Ah well, his job was to observe the test, not to pass it. One of the team members jumped out from his hiding spot and charged Kakashi. Naruto was taken aback at the laziness with which he was stopping the Genin's assault on him. The Genin was using what taijutsu he had, and it was sloppy and unrefined even to Naruto's inexperienced eyes. The Jonin hadn't even taken his eyes off his book. It wasn't even an interesting fight, it was boring really. With the Genin dispatched and humiliated, the Jonin continued to wander gently through the training ground. Naruto followed, keeping either high in the trees or low to the ground, not following too quickly. Keeping out of the way, he settled into a new position as the second Genin attacked with a barrage of shuriken and kunai from above. Whilst the accuracy of 5 projectiles at once was impressive for a Genin, Naruto found himself almost offended by it. Who wastes 5 shots when you only needed 1? Either way, the Jonin had used a Karawimi without delay and been utterly unaffected by the assault. He then disappeared away from a fireball jutsu. Naruto watched the giant jutsu as he became more and more confused by their attacking style. Whilst undeniably powerful, it was far too showy for his liking. In fact, all of these shinobi were far too of them seemed to have any plan of action and were acting individually. He briefly wondered whether the 3 Genin could combine to win, but decided against it. The Jonin was just too strong, and was moving in his general direction. His hands flicked through the hand signs for his shadow-deepening genjutsu, and shrunk back deeper into the undergrowth. He found a hollow tree and ducked inside it, cloak taking on the mottled texture of the rough bark. That done, he activated the Byakugan once again. He checked his surroundings. The sensei had managed to take the final Genin member, the mixed chakra signals around the girl indicating a genjutsu. And the Jonin was moving towards him, still reading his book. He held his nerve. Only if the Jonin was a very good sensor and paying attention would he actually be spotted. He kept his watch as the man approached. The man was still reading the book, although Naruto could see his visible eye glancing left and right as he did. Not only was he extremely competent, but he intentionally gave off a goofy air to ensure his Genin weren't ready for his true strength. The man glanced up at the tree and looked directly at Naruto for just the slightest second. He then checked to see if anyone was around, and pulled his headband up to reveal his second eye. Naruto cursed the fact he was wearing a mask, previously hidden by the book. He could have read the facial expression much better if it hadn't been there. His eye saw the other eye. The Byakugan shows life in grayscale except for chakra. Chakra is usually a pale blue, although different personalities could show different colors. Kakashi's eye was a subtlety darker color than the rest of him. And spun gently, like Lord Danzo's eye. He has the Sharingan too, it must be Hokage Kakashi. Naruto realized that if he could see Kakashi's eye, it meant Kakashi could see through his genjutsu. He had been found. Instinct honed by hours of training kicked in. He dropped smoke, created a couple of shadow clones and fled, each clone going in a different direction. Byakugan active, he focused his real eye ahead to stop him hitting everything, and his Byakugan behind him as best he could. Aside from the blind spot where the optical nerve connected it to his brain, as best he could see he wasn't being followed at all. In fact, the figure was waving goodbye in a faintly surprised manner to each clone in turn. He stopped. Kakashi had clearly seen him but had made no move to follow or speak to him. In fact, he had been pleasantly surprised. That didn't square up. He stopped moving and ducked instinctively under the thickest cover he could find and looked out once more using the Byakugan. Kakashi was moving off again in the slow, deliberate fashion he'd done when the test had started. No urgency, just a slow stroll with the book held out in front of him. So, he had been found by an experienced ninja, who, instead of demanding to know who he was and why he was there, had let him escape. The last part was almost definitely true. Naruto was quick for his age and agile, but there was no way he could match the speed of a full-grown and experienced jonin, especially one with the record Kakashi had. No. He had been pleasantly surprised. That meant he was slightly expecting him to be there. But how? The Hokage must have told him. Naruto filed that away. It was obvious he was being tested. The don't be spotted instruction the Hokage had given on the rooftops had been an obvious one. This one was more subtle. He was being evaluated by the jonin with the team. He continued to observe from a distance, worried that Kakashi could spot him too easily if he got too close. He was lecturing his team, one of them tied to a post. He eventually turned away and walked off. The team wasn't going anywhere, might as well see what Kakashi was doing. He had a hunch. The trees and shrubbery barely rustled as he moved quickly from place to place. Byakugan eye focused on the elite jonin. He had been right. Kakashi was hiding with a clear view of his charges, and was watching them closely. Naruto stopped a short distance away, and considered throwing up a genjutsu. He dismissed the option. It hadn't worked the first time, it probably wouldn't a second time. Could he get a shot off with the bow? Maybe, but this man was elite. He looked through the trees at his target again. His focus on the genin was very tight. Maybe from above, he moved up into the branches of the trees, and reached behind him. The reassuring black leather grip of the tanto blade he kept on his back slid into his palm in a very practiced motion. He crept along the branch until he was nearly above Kakashi, and unsheathed the blade slowly, well-oiled sheath barely whispering as the blade slipped from it. He took a grip, and dropped, blade moving towards Kakashi's back through the air as he pushed it down to increase the power it would hit Kakashi with. Kakashi reacted at the last possible moment, rolling away and launching a kunai at him. He shifted the blade just enough to block the projectile with a clang. It slammed into the earth as he prepared to move again. You're good. I only knew you were there just before you dropped. Although you're not retreating like last time, how did you spot me? Look. The shadow in the tree didn't look right. I've seen enough genjutsu in my time and decided to take a better look. It was good work. I expected as much. Hokage-sama sent me here for you to test me. Kakashi found himself a little taken aback. The way he'd said it bore absolutely no hint that he doubted it at all. It was a fair deduction. Yeah. You're good. Although a chunin, if they spotted you, would be enough to stop you at this stage. Your block with the tanto wasn't particularly good, and that cloak will get in your way in a straight-up fight. You are quick though. I don't get spotted. Even if I do, it's usually because I want to get guards to move quick too. Well, we'll both report to the Hokage later about each other, I guess. What do you think of my team? Too brash. No stealth at all. No dress sense either. Kakashi shrugged. Well, I have to pass them. They seem to have finally worked out to work as a team. Quite rare. Jana. He disappeared to pass the team. Naruto moved off back towards the briefing room to wait again. It should only take a couple of hours, and he could wait. Chapter 3, Border Force. Hiruzen stood in his office as he watched the clock slowly tick towards 5. That was the deadline for Jonin-sensei to report back to him. It was also the deadline for all other missions to report to him. So far he had only 2 appointments outstanding. One was several hours late, and the other was probably waiting somewhere to let all appointments finish. With 5 seconds to go before the second hand ticked its way to him being too late, Kakashi walked through the door. Sorry I'm late. I walked past the Inuzuka compound on my way here and had to help retrieve a dozen stray dogs. Of course you did. Given the time, let's skip straight to business, Kakashi. Another failure of a team? He could have sworn there was a smirk under that mask. Pass. Although only just. Amazing. Skill evaluation? The Uchiha is the most advanced of them, although that would be expected. The other 2 are civilian-born. They'll have to be taught how to do things properly. They could be good though, if they can gel together properly. And the actual skill evaluation? Not while he's in the room unannounced. How did you know that? I can see the signs. That, and you have a bit of paper on your desk with the words they passed on it. He is very good, isn't he? He is. Come down, Naruto. In the darkest corner of the room, a roof beam was briefly wreathed in smoke and was replaced with Naruto. I know you like hiding, but if anyone else had found you, you would be dead. Inbu, you don't take kindly to assassins. Still, a henge and additional shadows. Very neat. Even if they looked at you directly, they still might not notice. Naruto merely shrugged. Kakashi? He's good, quiet, and elusive. I only really found him by accident, and needed the Sharingan to confirm it. That good? Some issues. He's a little too formulaic. No personal touches, just a basic flowchart approach to stealth. It works, it's a good strategy. But if someone works him out, he'd be in trouble. Good. Any comments, Naruto? Naruto shook his head. Any report on your mission? The genin have no stealth skills and are too direct. The sensei is a pervert based on my research on the book he is reading, who despite appearances is very quick and clever. I'd expect nothing less from his reputation. Not all of us are stealth specialists, Naruto. My genin teams looks to be more in the role of an assault group. That got a shrug. Can I go? You are dismissed. I've given you an apartment in the city. Talk to people if you want to. I'll send someone to call for you when I have a mission for you. Naruto nodded, walked up the wall and headed out to the roofs off Konoha as the sunset began blurring over the sky. Not one to mix words, is he? He makes you look like a loudmouth Kakashi. True enough. What do you have in mind for him long term? Probably ANBU Black Ops. He needs a little bit more training and to learn more about people. I'm going to have him trail teams when they start doing higher ranked missions, then let him decide where to go. Kakashi shrugged and made to leave. Kakashi, he turned around. You have a difficult team. It's the only team we force, the best and the worst. Be careful with them, and don't bias yourself. I'll try, Hokage-sama. A couple of weeks later, Naruto moved through the trees behind the team he was shadowing. This team was going to be a pain to stay behind. He sniffed himself and made a mental note to properly wash later. The smell was beginning to get up his nose unpleasantly. He would endure it for the mission. The girl of the team was a Hyuga. That alone made him wary. When he had received his Byakugan several years before, he had been warned that the clan would likely want to murder him if they saw the eye. That was because it meant that a main house Hyuga had had the eyes ripped out of their face whilst they were still alive, preventing the Hyuga seal from killing off the eyes. That alone made it nearly impossible. The second was because the Hyuga fighting style was incredibly well suited to killing people. Juken strikes, difficult to pull off but deadly if managed, were able to disable a person's body inch by inch. The fact she would be able to spot him through any genjutsu, and see his chakra meant hiding from her was difficult. He had to hope his eyes had better range than hers did, and that she didn't spot him. Usually, he'd just try and stay in the blind spot of the Byakugan, but that too had held difficulties. One of the group was an Inuzuka, and had a dog with him. Naruto wasn't a fan of dogs. They were big, they were noisy, and they had a cunning intelligence seemingly tailor-made to root out assassins. Like him, so to avoid being seen, he had to make himself smell like the forest, which had involved breaking open some pine cones and daubing the stuff onto his skin. The smell was unpleasant, although less unpleasant than getting a knife stuck into him. Again, the final member was an Aburame. That meant bugs. He vaguely recalled meeting one of his former master's high operatives, an Aburame whose name he couldn't recall at that moment. It was an irrelevant detail for now. Bugs would be attracted to the pine smell, so he had thrown up a small genjutsu to confuse them enough to leave him alone. Of course, the bugs would be confused enough that there was an apparent blank where should be a tree, but it would take longer for the bug user to work that out. Then he would drop back out of range. The sensei didn't appear to be a censor, although he remained suspicious of her. She dressed weirdly. Almost all of the shinobi seemed to have distinctive traits. The team was taking a stroll to the border with Suna, an ally of Konoha's. Or something like that. He hadn't really paid attention to it. He was just going to follow the team, kill anything he needed to, then get back to the apartment he had been given, for want of a better place to be. The root barracks wasn't allowed, now that he was a full shinobi of Konoha. He had slung the metal plate across his back, where he could reach it if needed and otherwise completely out of the way, and where it could give off no reflections. Even if the cloak went, he had dutifully removed the shine from the metal and blackened it to lower the chance of it giving him away. As far as he was aware, no one in the block knew he was actually resident in the apartment. He only really moved when they were asleep or it was dark, and was very, very quiet. It was comfortable and bigger than his old barak room, and had a lot more light in it. He had immediately modified it to his specifications. The blinds were drawn, allowing only half light into the room. Every moving hinge had been oiled to kill off any noise, and various floorboards were now nightingale-trapped. Simply put, anyone who wanted to come in could be killed very, very quickly. He turned his thoughts away from the apartment, and back to the mission. He moved to a high branch and continued to watch. The team had stopped for a quick break, possibly running ahead of schedule as far as he could deduce. They weren't tired. In fact, the dog user seemed full of energy and excitement, his teammates more reserved. The sensei looked relaxed. He studied the girl more closely. The black and white Byakugan vision wasn't particularly good at assessing appearance, but Naruto could read body language. And lips, reserved, shy. No big movements. Uses full honorifics as well, seems nervous but excited. His gaze moved to the dog user, who was bounding around with his canine partner as he talked. Brash, loud? Too loud. Offensively loud. I can hear him from here. Quite fast, very extrovert. All big movements. Keeps looking at the girl and smiling. His eyes caught the sensei, telling him off. Authoritarian, but doesn't look comfortable. Similar to the Hyuga girl. Not used to this. Defensive posture, possibly her fighting style, lack of weapons around. Nin or genjutsu specialist. Clothing suggests possibly the latter. Kurinai Yehi. Confirm with eye color. The Aburame he gave only a sparing glance before he realized he was getting nothing off him other than the fact he was the most proper ninja out there. Quiet, glasses could be more optimized though. No discernible body language and his back is turned. Looking back. Should be cautious of him. The bug user didn't seem to say anything, and the team was soon moving off again, moving at a 50% pace to reach the border river. He continued following, mentally preparing himself for any conflict that might occur. An attack was unlikely, but still, it always served to be prepared. As he moved to a better position, he slid the crossbow off his back and slipped a bolt into the firing mechanism. He had studied the maps for the mission briefly. The word river was a stretch. It was little more than a stream. But it served as a boundary, so it had to be a little more grandiose than stream. The Konoha team was now waiting. He suspected that this mission was a C rank only because the document was slightly important, and more to just give them experience of field work. Staying behind them, Naruto shifted himself onto a tree branch, throwing his cloak over himself to keep hidden, readied the bow, and waited. It took only 15 minutes for the Suna delegation to arrive. By that time, the Inuzuka had got bored, the Hyuga nervous, the sensei annoyed. For Naruto, it had barely been any time at all, his crossbow aimed in the general direction of the crossing. The Suna team was fairly nondescript. Their sensei looked bored as the team made it to their side of the stream, where the vegetation was sparser and shrub-like. Byakugan deactivated for the moment, Naruto began to assess the Suna team. Nothing unique looking, clothing suited to desert wear. Genin seem interested by plant life. Some weaponry amongst the genin. Sensei carries a fan. Interesting. The Suna Jonin waved to his Konoha counterpart, who waved back. He began to cross the stream. Then there was a bit of a kerfuffle. Naruto concentrated on the two sensei, which were now in the middle of a standoff. He read the lips to see what the conversation was. Aren't you supposed to disarm before you cross the borderline? Look! It's a C rank. No one is watching, no one is going to kill us if we break this stupid protocol. Can I just have the scroll so I can get this bunch of bedwetters home? You haven't even identified yourself. You and your charges carry weapons into Konoha territory, and whilst we are allies, this is an affrontment. I know it's a C rank, but you should be setting an example for the genin. Look bitch, I didn't ask for this. Tough. Back off, provide ID or I will take measures against you. That made things interesting. Naruto turned on the Byakugan to check the chakra signatures. The Konoha team was fine, as were the visible teams, genin lining up loosely behind their sensei warily. It was the second group of signatures that really made Naruto look again. There were 4 of them, hiding in the earth off to one side. In the earth, Doton Jutsu. Another Suna team? Unlikely, the Suna sensei is rude, but only that. Naruto thought quickly as he had been taught as his head ran through a number of plans. He narrowed down the options to the ones he could do, then the ones he liked. Within a second of spotting the hidden team, the crossbow was aimed straight at the largest signature, whose chakra was building slowly. Likely the team leader. He saw with his normal eye the Suna Jonin reach out and push Kurinai. Then it began. The earth jutsu whipped across the stream at Kurinai, who moved very quickly to avoid it. Kiba leapt forwards, suspecting one of the Suna team to be responsible, only to be knocked back by the Suna Jonin. Then the other ninja rose from the bushes. From Hinata's viewpoint, she could see Kiba sprawling back as the Suna Jonin started shouting that none of his team knew that jutsu. Then her Byakugan caught the offenders, who were leaping out to engage the surprise teams. Then a crossbow bolt slammed through the eye socket of one of the team, and he fell face first into the stream, bloody water splashing up around him. A second bolt clipped the leg of another of the new arrivals, sending him tumbling to the ground. By this point, the Suna Jonin had engaged another, and her sensei was flying through hand signs as the final member of the party made straight for her. She shook as she prepared herself to fight, Shino moving in behind her as they had trained for, as a final crossbow bolt slammed into the man's heart. He fell, oozing blood onto the sand. A moment later the final member of the ambush was caught in a genjutsu and blindsided by the heavy fan. His torso crumpled in a way that suggested he wouldn't be getting up. She searched the surroundings for the crossbow wielder. There was someone moving away very fast. They were hooded and their chakra was heavily suppressed. But they were holding a crossbow in one hand and a Konoha headband in the other as they moved away. There was something wrong with their chakra. Heavily wrong. And devastatingly familiar. The Suna and Konoha teams regrouped. The Suna Jonin put his fan away. That was an unexpected bonus. Now, let's see whose these people are. He dragged the only living member of the ambush team up by his vest. The man was clutching his leg where the bolt had clipped him. Oh, IWA. What brings you out here? Fuck you. Kurenai joined the interrogation. Name. Rank. Serial number. Fuck you. Uberkage.
0110110000000110100100000101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010101010
She slapped him and turned to her counterpart. Hold him still. I think I can make him talk. She flew through hand signs as she called the genin over. Let me show you a nice little genjutsu that I find useful in situations where you have to deal with a smartass. Hinata, pay attention, you have Kiba to deal with. He pouted as she blushed and meeped. Demonic illusion, vision of nightmare. A second later, the man began screaming, trying to break the hold of the Suna Jonin, who smiled. Damn. He doesn't like that, does he? He shouldn't. Right now he's dying a number of interesting ways. Well, he thinks he is. He can't even break it. She deactivated the genjutsu. Care to talk now? I hear Ibiki-san back in Konoha like stubborn ones. They give much more entertainment. Yuziko Teo, Chunin, IS-78432. Wasn't that easy? Why were you here? B-rank, capture the documents for the Kazakage regarding security protocol for the CH. He started screaming as Kurenai reasserted control. Hold your tongue till you return to Konoha. I think I know what you were about to say. Hinata, seal his chakra as best you can. Shino, drain him to a safe amount. Hi. She knocked the unfortunate man out, and turned to her Suna counterpart, and passed over the scroll. The man shot her a cheeky smile. What? No protocol? I think it's broken enough. Damn, you're more fun than I thought. Care to come out to Suna sometime? The implication was obvious. No thank you, I'm a professional. I have a job to finish, so I bid you farewell. Good thing you had the backup hidden away. Thank them for me. Kurenai didn't miss a beat. I will. She walked away at a brisk pace, the unconscious Chunin draped over her shoulder in an unladylike fashion. Her team scrambled to follow. Kiba, stay quiet until we are at least 10 minutes away. He shut his mouth. She hadn't even looked. The minutes were tense for the team as they made their way back towards Konoha, a day's light travel at best. Kiba snapped. We had backup? Shino was the one to reply. No. We would have been told about such backup, it being logical. I cannot think of any reason why we would have unexplained backup. Hinata swallowed. Kurenai-sensei, I. Yes, Hinata-chan? Don't be afraid. I looked for the shooter after the engagement ended. I saw a figure, a bit shorter than Kiba, carrying a crossbow with a leaf height. Kurenai added that to her list of oddities. A crossbow using ninja shadowing a genin team on an otherwise trivial mission. Is this the person Kakashi mentioned over drinks a while back? She halted her team. All of you scan the surrounding area as best you can and tell me what you can find. Shino, I guess you've already done this? He nodded as Kiba and Akamaru began sniffing and Hinata looked everywhere. There is nothing outstanding nearby, although it feels like something is out there. Something is confusing my bugs slightly behind us. It is very odd. She nodded. Kiba? Nothing but our team and the forest. Oh, and I think the IWA guy wet himself. Thank you, Kiba. I was trying not to notice that little fact. Hinata? He's about 500 meters away from us, back the way we came. His chakra is odd. He's moving back out of my range. Kiba started running backwards, but Shino stopped him. Shino! Come on! We can find this guy easy. It would be illogical to fight another Leaf Shinobi. We have a captive, and he is our main mission priority. Kurenai nodded. Shino is right, Kiba. Calm down or you'll get yourself killed by rushing in too quickly. Remember the graduation test? My little genjutsu? Kiba shivered, the horror of the genjutsu fresh in his mind. Try and move off again and I'll reapply it. And this time the dress will be pink. That shut him up. Some distance away, Naruto moved slowly back into sight range of the team. He had been spotted by the Hyuga girl, and the sensei was now aware of what he was. That annoyed him. Then again, the leaf plate was a good passport. He sped up, moving around the team to get towards Konoha faster. Unlike them, the main gate wasn't his usual entrance. He didn't have to sign in, and he didn't have a prisoner. Chapter 4, Right Between the Eyes. Night was falling again as Hiruzen finished the final debrief of the day. The team had made it back later than expected, but he put that down to the prisoner they were escorting. So in conclusion, Hokage-sama, the documents were delivered and we captured an IWA shinobi who knew the details of handover for interrogation. Well done, Kurenai. The mission will be bumped from CB rank accordingly. Teammate is dismissed. The genin dutifully filed out, but Kurenai hung back until they were out of earshot. Hokage-sama, the unidentified Konoha shinobi at the stream. Who is it, and why the hell are they tailing my team? They are another young shinobi in training. He began doing official missions when you received your team, primarily tailing, tracking and watching of other teams whilst avoiding detection. Who? This is difficult to believe, especially when he took out 2 low Chunin level ninja in the space of a few seconds amongst other things, whilst non-fatally incapacitating a third. The fourth I was able to deal with quickly with the assistance of my Suna counterpart. This young shinobi has skills that beggar belief to my mind, such as, he tailed my team for the entire mission and only got spotted because he intervened. Hinata's eyes can see at least 500 meters in all directions, Kiba's nose is sharp, and Shino keeps bugs in a perimeter around him. They may be genin, but no genin should be able to evade them at all. Hinata spotted him getting away from the combat zone at speed once the engagement was over. That doesn't add up either. To be honest, I'm amazed the Suna Jonin didn't question it further. Indeed. You are right, it is non-standard. Your team is the first to detect him, and his report states he had to gamble on Hinata's eyesight not spotting him. How could he tell? If he had got within 20 meters of me, I should have spotted him. Am I going mad, or is he a Hyuga? Only they would be able to see that far. Neither. Come out, Naruto. Kurenai sensed a short burst of chakra as the genjutsu Naruto had been holding ruptured. A chair in the slightly darker corner of the room became Naruto, and he walked to stand before the desk. Kurenai stared at the spot he had been as he walked over. Go back and do the same thing again. No, he just looked back. Why? Because I should have spotted your disguise in seconds and I didn't. He just kept looking at her with no emotion detectable under the hood of his cloak. The single blue eye just stayed open and looked into her red ones. Naruto, please oblige her request. She is a master of genjutsu, and could be helpful to you in future. Hi, Hokage-sama. There was no sarcasm, irony or exasperation in that voice. Just a cool acceptance of an order. Look away, please. They did. A few seconds later, she looked back, looking for the tells in his genjutsu. Okay, the shadows are a little off, and the chair is... No, the floorboards, the chair. Why can't I focus on it properly? She walked closer, and crossed her fingers. Kai. Now she could see the chair. The transformation was good, no discoloration or obvious deformity that usually appeared on the standard genin henge for more complex objects. She moved her hand towards the chair, expecting to meet the resistance of a person where they were hidden. There was none. She ran her hands over the chair. It was very chair-like. She tried to pick it up. It was definitely not chair-heavy. She backed off as he transformed back out again. Your hands are very gentle, they felt nice. She wasn't quite sure what to make of that. What exactly had she been touching? How did human chair transformation affect the biology of what went where? Probably best not to ask. A solid transformation henge is a high-level skill. Interesting genjutsu, it makes it hard to focus on you. I guess you can't use it whilst moving? He nodded. It's clever. What would you do if someone called you on it without giving any indication they knew? Escape or die. What? I'm not built for protracted fights. Why don't you learn? Never needed to. That statement shocked her most of all. From anyone else, it might have been arrogance. This didn't sound like it. It just sounded like a statement of fact. There might have been a hint of pride. Not really, though. Under the hood with one eye visible in the half-light, he was unreadable. Take off your hood. No. I need to know how you knew what my team was doing. No. She couldn't stare him down. Kurenai, there are some secrets that should be kept. That young man holds more secrets than I like. I still want to know. There was a small creak from the doorway and Hiruzen turned to look. There was a nervous squeak from someone outside. Enter. The doors opened and Hinata walked in, Byakugan active. Her face was nervous, and her posture tense. Kurenai swept round to look at her. Hinata, why are you here? How much did you hear? All of it, Kurenai-sensei. Why did you come back? I wanted to talk to you. Then I kept listening. I think I know how he could see our team. There was a click. Kurenai turned to see Naruto, crossbow raised to his shoulder, aimed in a very, very still and deliberate manner directly between Hinata's eyes. She moved between them. There was a blur, and the crossbow pinwheeled across the room from Naruto's hands. The Hokage stood before him. Naruto, do not draw your weapon on a fellow Konoha shinobi. She may know a secret she should not, but killing her is not the way to manage this situation. But if she spreads it, you know the consequences will be worse than her death. You still don't do it. I can handle it. Just for this, I want Hinata to reveal what she thinks she knows. Hinata? The girl was still stock still, having seen the crossbow leveled. Kurenai leant down next to her and drew her close in. Just whisper it to me if you want to. She did so, slowly and trembling, just about getting the last syllable out before she passed out, the situation becoming too much. Kurenai leant her up against the desk, marched towards Naruto, and pushed the hood back. The strip of fabric he had tied across the only made the single defiant eye that stared back even more imposing. Show me. Do you have a Byakugan? He pulled back the fabric to reveal it. The sight was off-putting, one eye pearly white and the other azure blue. After a brief second, he pulled the fabric back over it. Happy? Satisfied. Not happy you drew a weapon on my student. Harm her and you die. You will not hide from me. Fine. Kurenai drew back and mentally calmed herself. Hokage-sama, what do we do about Hinata? If she learns her suspicion is correct, she will be duty-bound to see him hunted down by her clan for having one of their eyes. It means a main house member had it taken from them. It will not sit well, agreed. However skilled the Yamanaka are, they cannot force her to forget. You must swear her to silence on the matter, and hope her clan does not learn of it. I think the fact she wouldn't want him to die will keep the secret safe. She's not the vengeful type. The Hokage nodded and turned back to Naruto, who was standing still as he waited. Anything to add, Naruto? No, Hokage-sama. You could apologize? She is unconscious. It would be pointless. Then ask Kurenai to pass it on. Hiruzen smiled as it took Naruto slightly longer to act than it should have done. Naruto was now looking at Hinata's peaceful form, and he thought there was just a hint that he felt some sort of emotional response to it. Kurenai-san, please pass on my apology to Hinata? The way he said it sounded like a child using a new word for the first time. The inflection made the word apology sound like a question more than a statement. It almost made him chuckle. I will, Naruto. If you'll excuse me, Hokage-sama. She left, cradling the sleeping Hinata in her arms as she made to take her home. Hiruzen turned to Naruto. Now for you. You intervened in a mission, explain. I was in a better position to eliminate the threats. The two genin teams were not paying attention to their surroundings, and I suspect I saved the lives of some of them. I was only detected as I fell back, and as the team was occupied knew I could make good the escape. Hiruzen nodded. Saving genin was important, even if it did seem odd to sacrifice an elite ninja for a rookie one. He'd seen enough promising candidates die on the field because a jonin didn't care. Well, that team was always going to be difficult to avoid detection. You did well. However, draw a weapon on another of your fellow shinobi again, and it will be your arm instead of your bow. Understood? Hi, can I go? How do you feel about Hinata? There was a pause. I don't feel anything, although I would have preferred not to upset her. It was unnecessary. So you do feel sorry? If that is what sorry is, embrace the feeling, Naruto. When Kurenai examined your genjutsu, did you feel anything about it? Her assessment of my skills was filled with praise. Is that good? If it was correct, which I feel it was, so you are pleased with the result? Yes. Happy? Proud? If that is what they are. I've only ever felt the feeling when I have successfully completed a mission. Embrace that as well, Naruto. Emotion is what makes us human as well as shinobi. I will try. May I go now? You may. He puffed on his pipe as Naruto went out through a high window into the dark. He was startled by the fact he had been prepared to kill Hinata to keep the secret. The fact was, eventually news about Naruto was going to spread amongst the teams. He couldn't avoid detection forever. Naruto slid in through his perpetually open window to his home. The house was chilly, the fall of night cooling the air so that his breath slightly misted as he breathed. There were no lights on, no indication he was in. He surveyed his apartment again. A small room, an all-in-one kitchen, living room and bedroom, with a bathroom tucked neatly into a corner. He sat on the bed, the sheets still made from when whoever had got the apartment ready for arrivals still made neatly. He didn't sleep on the bed, he didn't really need to. Still, sitting on the firm mattress was preferable to the floor for a few hours. He shut his eyes and folded his arms as he considered the words of the Hokage again. Was he happy that his henjin genjutsu were judged well by a fellow shinobi? Certainly it was vindication of his skills, and although not nearly as potent, it was similar to how he felt when a well-laid plan came to fruition, usually in the form of a crossbow bolt to the cranium. He considered his life in a logical fashion, using the time en route as a datum. Upsides: more time outdoors, more mission freedom, justification of skills by superiors, net wealth gain in apartment and mission fees. Discovery of new things. New avenue of interest to explore and learning to map experience to emotion more logically. Downsides: people everywhere. Peers illogical and loud. Lack of training by Lord Danzo. That last thought caught him unawares. Certainly not having a sensei, and sharpening the skills he already had was gratifying, and he was learning much about the other forces Konoha had to offer. But still, why did he feel the pressing need to talk to his former master? Maybe he could. He hadn't been explicitly forbidden after all. The whispering sound of his cloak was the only noise as he left the apartment in search of answers. The wall was fairly easy to get around. It could be walked over, moved under using any number of the tunnels he knew, in some cases even walked through. Out into the country, he took the long winding route designed to throw off pursuers, even though his Byakugan told him none were present. He found the hidden entrance and performed his knock. A hatchway opened, and he slipped inside. The guard didn't need to look at him, and gave a brief nod to him as he walked past. Each root member had a unique knocking code that identified them to the entrance guard. The guard knew every knock. He moved down the long shadowy corridors as if he had never left, the twisting tunnels confusing to anyone but someone who knew the layout. A fair portion of recruits simply didn't make it as they became lost in the labyrinthine structure. The genjutsu up on parts of it didn't help people either. He found the door, and did his knock again. Enter. It was as if he had never left. The door opened and he walked inside before kneeling. Lord Danzo, Naruto. I can't say I haven't been expecting a visit from you. I wonder if you can tell me why. You may stand. You're not technically part of Root anymore. Naruto was quiet for a moment. I was meditating on the events of previous weeks, and the missions I have undertaking under the Hokage as you taught me to do for all my missions. Anything that required your skills? Just the one. Ambushed by an IWA team, killed 3, and left 1 for interrogation. Then there were problems. I was spotted by the Hyuga on the team. Ah, young Hinata? Shy girl. She must have discovered your eye. Yes. It happened within sight of the Hokage and her sensei, so she is bound by trust. That is unfortunate. Have you got a cover story prepared? Yes. I hope the issue does not arise again, and just have to avoid using the eye when I am trailing a team with a Hyuga. A wise choice. Continue with where you were going? I was considering the pros and cons of my current situation, and one of the downsides I found was that I wasn't being trained by you. Or anyone for that matter. I should have a teacher, as I still have skills to learn. I don't know why I thought it should be you, given I am no longer Root, and you cannot be seen to be training me. It is illogical, yet I cannot shake the thought. Danzo's face remained impassive, and looked Naruto in the eye with his own. Have you been feeling emotions? Now that you are not Root, you should cultivate them. I remember having them, years ago. I don't have that luxury now. I felt pleased that Kurina Yahi thought my genjutsu was good, and felt wrong after I threatened to silence Hinata before fellow shinobi. I think these were happiness and regret, but I don't know. I don't think they would be good to have on missions. Danzo nodded and knelt down next to the shorter Naruto, placing a hand on his shoulder. It is alright, Naruto. What you feel currently is that you miss me and my training. It is natural, even if 2 months ago I would have scolded you for it. I miss your services, but I cannot train you now. I have taught you all I know about stealth in all things, and you have surpassed me in that. What you need is a sensei who can teach you more of the subtle arts of death. A poison specialist maybe, or someone who can teach you a bit more taijutsu. In your new role, it may not be long until you find shinobi who will be able to detect you even if your stealth is perfect. I wish you good luck. Naruto nodded, and wiped his cloak over his eye instinctively. He then looked at it, wondering why he had done so. Sadness is the emotion I know most about, Naruto. I can give you a bit of advice. Do not dwell in it, but use it as motivation to make things better. I am sad I am not Hokage, or that I caused deaths. I use it to push myself onwards to greater things. Hi Danzo-sama. Now get going, and come back if you feel the pressing need, otherwise best we dwell in the shadows. Danzo watched as his charge went through the door and vanished into the black tunnels, before turning back to his works. I hope you know what you're doing, Hiruzen, as you will either make or break that boy. Chapter 5, Backup Plans. He was waiting again. He'd watched teams coming and going from the room with all the awareness a rabbit did just before a hawk turned it from a fluffy herbivore into a meal. He mentally ticked off the number of kills he could have made in the time between the first team coming in and the latest one, ignoring consequences like the Hokage being in the room, adding on inaccuracies he could incur if he were to lose concentration or fall asleep, and assuming nobody noticed the rapidly rising body count in the room, he estimated maybe 50 or so. Maybe more if he was lucky. Still, he was glad he had mastered a state of half-alertness that allowed him to get some rest whilst he waited. It wasn't sleep. It wasn't being fully awake. It was a sort of magic in-between zone that could tide him over until he needed to properly sleep. It was still enough for him to quickly get away if he needed to. If he was found in the first place. All he needed to do was hold his various hiding genjutsu up. The air around him was laced with a lot of his chakra. In any case, he was now carefully watching a conversation he hadn't expected to see. The Hokage was talking, respectfully and normal, to a pug dog that was sitting on his desk. Wearing a vest. Speaking plain English. With a headband. He knew summoning animals existed, and knew that these must be the nin dogs of Hatake Kakashi. He had decided to further research the first person who had genuinely found him when he was hiding. He found himself impressed by the man's work. He was still fascinated. At least the bits of him that weren't working out how easily the dogs could find him, or if he could kill them were. There was only a 3.7% chance, and he decided to ignore the possibility. He could read the Hokage's lips easily, but the dog's voice was muffled and with its back turned, he could only see half the conversation. He wondered if there was a jutsu he could use to hear at a distance. That would be useful. The demon brothers? No doubt he took care of that. There was gruff, bark-like voice of the dog, continuing with the mission after the genin requested to. Brave. But stupid. I'll chat to him about that later. More talking. It sounded urgent. I would send backup, but there isn't a team to send right now. I mean I could, but will it be necessary? The dog's head tilted. What do I mean I could? Well, let me look above and see if anything reveals itself to me. He looked up into the air and blew a smoke ring upwards in a lazy, satisfied manner. To the dog on the table, it was a gesture that was confusing, smug and utterly unexpected. Naruto read the way it was said, the body language and the words. He had a choice to go as backup on a mission that would be potentially dangerous. He was being asked if he wanted it. He dropped from where he was lying on a rafter neatly down behind the dog, which turned and looked him over. He's a little short, Hokage-sama. Is he a genin? No Pakin, he's a special case. He's your team's backup. Tell Kakashi Naruto will be shadowing the mission as backup. Shadowing mind, he'll act as he sees fit. Pakin gave him a closer examination. He looked intently at his outfit and gear. He took in the headband. He sniffed him and recoiled with a disgusted, gruff whimper. When was the last time you washed? Naruto considered. A week ago? I don't really keep track of these things. You smell like the forest. Considering how much time I've spent shadowing teams in forests, it helps avoid detection. What on earth are you, an assassin? The dog looked at Hiruzen with an incredulous expression on its pug features. Seriously? He nodded. No. Seriously? He's the real deal? Pretty much. The dog looked at Naruto one final time. Right, you better get going towards Wave Country. I'll desummon to report back to Kakashi, and I might see you out there. Naruto was up and onto the rooftops in seconds. Pakin turned back to face the Hokage. I really hope you're right about this kid. He scares me. Too quiet. He's not normal. He isn't. The dog shook its head and vanished in a puff of smoke. As he bounced from tree to tree, Naruto realized that he was feeling more alive than he had for a while. He had no idea what the feeling was, but he was feeling it, and it was pleasant. More than pleasant. The wind going through his hair, pushing his hood back. His mind focused on moving tree to tree in readiness to unleash his bow on his targets. Byakugan active, he sped forwards. Then suddenly something was blocking his vision. The mist had chakra in it. That was interesting. He slowed to prepare a strategy. Going into the mist would be suicide. If someone was generating a chakra mist whilst attacking the team, it was likely they were going to be quite powerful. And more than likely they would know if he did go into the mist. He moved round the edge of the mist, crossbow held loaded in his hands. His Byakugan vision swam in front of him, as he watched both real and grayscale worlds at the same time. He traced the edge, looking for anything. He found something. Another figure, masked, sitting on a tree branch, waiting tensely just inside the mist, head twitching as it followed the movement of the fighting below. He aimed the bow, looking to pierce the neck just under the mask. A gust of wind made the mist gently wisp around his leg, only the slightest of touches. But it was a touch nonetheless. The figure looked round, seemingly able to sense what was happening in the mist, and was just able to avoid the bolt as it sizzled past. By then Naruto was gone, hiding in the shadows his genjutsu cast. But his assailant had some control over the mist, and was flooding the area he was in. Naruto made a shadow clone and backed off before the mist could reach his position. He moved back and around, keeping to cover, his cloak blending with the world around him perfectly. He heard the twang as his clone fired its bow, and then saw the smoke and gained the memories of the clone. Saban. Well aimed too. They are very quick. He silently cursed the fact the encroaching mist that was expanding to cover the ninja's back. Given their reaction time for the first shot, they'd be watching themselves even more carefully. Oh well, he had alternatives. He snuck closer, keeping away from the mist just in case it pushed forwards a bit further until he had sight of the ninja. From somewhere in the mist there was a sound like a tidal wave smashing into the ground, and the ninja prepared to move. Naruto made another clone and got it into position, the plan the same as the originals. He began to form hand signs, the jutsu being prepared as fast as he could. He hadn't had much time to practice it since he'd seen it for the first time, but Kurenai had performed it in full view of him, and his memory was good. Just as he hit the final hand sign as the clone fired at the figure. As expected, they whipped round to find the source of the attack, Saban needles held in one hand. He unleashed the genjutsu, hopeful that it would work even without that much practice, and formed ad hoc. The figure froze and cried out in pain. The clone rushed forwards, dropping the bow and drawing the tanto blade of its back to go in for the kill, whilst the original focused on maintaining the genjutsu. Naruto grimaced as he continued to try and flood his target's mind with terrible ways to die. It was difficult to explain exactly how a genjutsu like this worked, or even how the chakra transfer involved worked properly, but it was like trying to control a puppet from a long distance. His target was fighting the genjutsu. The clone thrust forward straight for the target's heart as it clapped its hands together. Kai! Naruto felt the genjutsu break and panted from the excursion. The strike from the tanto slammed into the ninja's clapped hands, going between both but not into the chest. The ninja kicked out fast and knocked the clone away before disappearing deeper into the mist. A crossbow bolt from the original sailed through where they had been and thudded into a tree. A few moments later, and the mist began to recede. At least the chakra within it did. Naruto dispelled the clone as he caught his breath. That was far too much like the way other shinobi fought. He had failed to get his kill. He made a note to reevaluate the action in his head. Right now, he was on a mission. That came first. He activated the Byakugan from the undergrowth where the ninja had been. He recognized the team as the one who had been his first mission. Kakashi was down, and with the Byakugan he could see that his chakra levels were down, and that he was unconscious. His mind blitzed through the options. Kakashi was alive, but heavily exerted. His foe had disappeared when the crash of water had happened, so presumably Kakashi had won his fight. Any foe capable of exhausting him was probably powerful, but alone. That made it unlikely any more attacks were coming. They were close enough to Wave Country to ensure that. All of that boiled down to a few simple objectives for Naruto. 1. Stay hidden and shadow the team. 2. Kill any further threats without any kind of delay, taking charge of the mission if need be. 3. Report to Kakashi with information when convenient. He took to the trees and followed the team as they made their way to the Wave Village. The next day, Kakashi walked slowly away on his crutches as he left his team to the tree climbing exercise. Zabuza had been a somewhat expected twist in this. Obviously, whoever wanted Tazuna dead was willing to pay big money to achieve his goal. That narrowed down the options considerably, and only a few really came to mind. Turns out he'd gone and got himself a man who specialized in killing and water jutsu. The shipping merchant Gato, a man so rich that even the full military might of Konoha was cautious in dealing with him. Economics was a battlefield that most Kage didn't like to tread, the civilians and daimyos being the warriors of such conflicts. Gato was corrupt as hell, a fact so universally known that he had stopped bothering to hide it. But he was clever and cunning. That made things difficult for Kakashi. Still, too late to back out of this mission. He stumped slowly up the stairs of Tazuna's house back to his room. He couldn't show it in front of his students, but his exhaustion was so extreme he'd probably need another day's bed rest before he could be up and about again properly, and a week until he could fight at full power. Still, there was a crumb of comfort that he wasn't the only one who wouldn't be up and about soon. Zabuza would be a few days in healing as well. He slithered onto the sleeping mat and closed his visible eye. He felt the whisper of the breeze through the window caress the skin and pulled his mask down to experience the sensation on his face. It took a moment, but he realized that window hadn't been open when he had left the room earlier that morning. And he had been the last one out. He reopened the eye to see the cloaked figure standing over his bedroll. So that's what you look like under your mask. What did that? An ANBU mission clusterfuck. My first mission. Someone blew our cover and there were suddenly jutsu everywhere. I ended up facing several Kumo nin who knew some wind jutsu. They left an impression on me before I could take care of them. He pulled the mask down once more to show his lower face. It wasn't all that bad in Naruto's book. A long scar ran from one side of his face to the other under his mouth. It was fairly clean, but still a thin line of red, ruined skin that ran across his face. Odd, but nothing truly disgusting. The kind of scar that ladies might find dashing and heroic would have been a good way of describing it, but Naruto was ignorant of such a thought. Winjutsu aren't nice to be on the end of. This one was half an inch from killing me. I was the only one that made it out. The cloaked figure stood still. How did it really happen? Do I have to explain it again? Anbu, Winjutsu, cut me open badly. You're lying. The wound is too jagged to be caused by a Winjutsu. The scar is too established to be less than 10 years old is my guess. Your Anbu time started more than then years ago. Kumo nin tend to prefer lightning or earth jutsu to wind jutsu. Plus you shut your eye to try and hide it. You'd make a good interrogator, Naruto. Why are you an assassin? I try not to talk too much. Fine. In the academy I challenged an older student to a spar when the teachers weren't looking. I was the best of my year, and got too cocky. He brought out a kunai, and I didn't dodge it well enough. Idiot. It could have been worse, I guess. He pulled the mask back up over his chin. Quite. I am here as backup from the Hokage. Good. Tell me what you know about the mission. From what I've seen, you're escorting a bridge builder and protecting him from someone who wants him dead. 2 high-level ninja involved in trying to kill him. The one I fought uses Sanban very efficiently, pretty much. The other ninja is Momochi Zabuza. Kiri missing nin uses the Kubikuribocho. High rank too. I expect him to attack again in about a week. What's your plan? Given that you are in effect a team leader of your own cell, I will shadow your team and assist in combat where necessary. Unless there's anyone you need assassinated. Kakashi stroked his chin, fingers tracing the scar unconsciously. Actually, there is. It would benefit our mission immensely if you could, and potentially rid the world of a nasty person. Name the target. Gato, shipping merchant and notorious crime lord. Probably nearby. Likes to see his associates do their dirty work personally. I will endeavor to kill him. It was the emotionless tone of voice that sent a chill down Kakashi's back. Make your original mission your main priority. In truth, I'm not sure killing Gato would be a good idea. It's not how Konoha wants to be seen to operate. As I said, we have a week. A normal-ass assassination mission takes several months of information gathering and intelligence operations. And that's with the team. Naruto nodded. Can I go now? Kakashi nodded and felt Naruto leave through the window. He lay back on the mat and tried once again to sleep. It was partially reassuring that he had an extra pair of hands around, but it was the fact that that pair of hands was Naruto that tinged that with a layer of caution. He had nearly drifted off when Naruto reappeared at the window. Oh, and eventually I'll find out the real reason behind that scar. Kakashi smiled. He was good. Naruto lay in the undergrowth next to the house. He looked out across the ocean that separated the tiny island nation from land. The great gray bridge stretched off towards the far shore. The sun, setting gently, had turned the sky into a mix of pinks, reds, oranges and yellows, melting into the horizon and dancing on the surface of the water. A few light clouds had their edges turned to silver and gold by the light, and their bodies pinkened by it. The slightest sliver of the moon was brightening as it rose. Only the lightest of ripples moved across the surface of the cool blue waters from a gentle breeze. Otherwise the gulf between lands was calm and still, reflecting the sunset so that it stretched over most of Naruto's vision. Not that he saw, of course. He merely saw an area where there were no hostile or allied presence. He was watching the house. Having spent the majority of the day hidden away in a half-daze until he could search for Gato's base of operations in the night, he had instead decided to watch what counted as their base of operations. He was about to move out when his hearing picked up on angry shouts coming from the house. He readied his bow just in case when the door burst open and one of the genin team ran out, frustrated anger written all over his face. He passed within a foot of Naruto's position. muttering under his breath as he went, angrily slashing at foliage within reach with a kunai. Now faced with a choice, Naruto's mind quickly decided what to do. Scoping out Gato's base was a secondary objective, and protecting the team he was with a primary one. He followed the genin out into the forest. He wasn't the best tracker in the world, more accustomed to hunting through forests of people and glades of buildings, but the genin made it easy. Slashes adorned branches as he went, cut leaves slashed. Naruto checked one or two of the notches as he went, noting the kunai was relatively blunt from its treatment. He continued to follow the genin until he stopped running in a clearing. His path trampled through the meadow in the clearing, flowers ripped up by his angry footsteps. The darkness gave Naruto time to hide better, and he kept watch as he watched the furious exercises the boy was doing. Mousy brown hair shook as he moved through kunai routines, repeating each one several times whenever he made a mistake. He found a tree and began kicking and punching at it viciously. Naruto was impassive. Training like this was unorthodox certainly, but could only prove useful. He wondered what could have driven the other boy to take such measures. He hadn't failed a mission yet, so drive to improve by failure wasn't a factor. It was unlikely his sensei had ordered such training, and if he had, he should be supervising it. His mind once more worked on possibilities. It was confusing. There was no reason that he was doing this, no rational reason Naruto's mind could see at least. He did understand the harshness of the training though. He remembered his younger days in the Root Barracks, practicing day and night to perfect the arts of his trade. He recalled the hours in the training halls, crossbow in hand as he shot and shot to perfect his aim. How he had gone out at night to learn how to adjust for wind and rain. He recalled the harsh fights with the weapon instructors, trying to use the tanto blade to good effect. He recalled the pain. There had been a lot. The special training. The even more special training. The white-hot pain. He turned his attention back to the boy, who was shouting loudly as he assaulted another tree. The rough, unyielding bark was slowly cracking under the repeated blows he was sending at it. Although Naruto could tell the boy was in pain, he also noticed the vocabulary he was using was getting fouler by the moment. There were names too, a couple of them repeated over and over. So this had to do with his teammates? Maybe he wanted to catch up to them in prowess? But the bell test had shown him to be far superior to the female member of his team. The other member? Possible. Maybe this was his normal routine. He watched with increasing fascination as the boy began flicking slowly through hand signs to try a jutsu. He activated the Byakugan without too much further thought. The chakra being formed was a muddy brown, so some sort of Doton technique. He watched the chakra build in the genin in a sloppy and uncontrolled manner before a mud wall tried to raise itself from the ground. He could see it was thin, to the point where the angry kick the boy aimed at it turned it into powdery dust. He saw the boy do it again. And again. Each time the chakra within him gained was smaller and smaller, until nothing happened. Then the boy passed out. He was still breathing, just sleeping from exhaustion. Ah well, better keep watch then. He looked up into the pitch-black sky that nightfall had finally brought about. The light twinkles of the stars was present as he looked up, picking out formations of stars into shapes. He didn't know why he did this. He just did. It was something to do to pass the time. He was good at waiting. Chapter 6: Fire and Ice. Just as morning was breaking, his half-sleep haze broke off and he snapped to alert as a figure in a pink kimono entered the clearing. He raised the crossbow to his shoulder as the figure checked the meadow for something, a basket full of plants under their arm as they walked. They looked around the clearing and sighted the boy lying, now snoring gently in the clearing. The pruning knife they were carrying gently moved as the grip was altered. The knife was raised as the figure knelt next to the boy. The sharp twang of the crossbow going off resonated around the clearing. The figure was quick, and blocked the bolt with the pruning knife, the force of the projecting ripping it clean out of their fingers. The next bolt was caught by a wall of ice. Come out, or the genin dies. I don't want to kill him. Naruto dropped from the trees, loaded crossbow pointing dead at the ninja's face. Drop your weapon. Drop yours first. You are in no danger, as I said. I don't want to fight. Naruto lowered his bow very, very slowly. He distrusted the figure, a teenager by the looks of things. The pink dress and choker screamed girl, but that was irrelevant. They knew ice jutsu, which was unexpected. With the bow lowered to his side, the figure looked at him, eyes slightly narrowed on the pale face. You're the person who attacked me before. How did I not sense you? I'm good at hiding. You are. What's your name? You expect me to say? Not really now. I thought we could get along without killing each other. I don't like killing. Killing is my job. The silence was total. I wasn't going to kill him, you know. I'm just gathering herbs to use for healing. Surely even you recognize the sanctity of medic core. An enemy is an enemy. The look on the figure's face became harder and colder. I suggest you leave. He is waking up and I will kill him if you aren't gone back to the town before he fully wakes. I won't kill him if you leave and let us be. Naruto considered the option. He could kill the figure, a relatively powerful ninja compared to the genin they held hostage, but at the cost of the genin's life. He thought back to the situation with Hinata back in the debriefing. The Hokage's face of anger when he had threatened to harm another shinobi of Konoha had been so intense, so real, and now he was effectively pointing his bow at another boy. He had no choice. Fine. If you do kill him, I will end your life. Fine. Now go. He backed off and moved into the bushes at speed. About 10 steps and he doubled back and took up position at a different edge, bow out and aimed. He relaxed slightly when he saw that they were talking without any weapons drawn. It was odd. The enemy shinobi knew that the genin was an enemy, and yet was not killing them off. They had had the chance after all. They had a perfect opportunity. He struggled to see the logic behind the action and drew a blank. Every possibility he could see lead to a favorable outcome if he were in his foe's position unless getting the herbs was so essential that they couldn't even risk fighting. But that didn't add up with the supposed injuries Zabuza had taken. He ran the scenarios through his head again to check if he'd missed anything. He hadn't. That made no sense. The situation didn't make any sense. Still, the figure was now gone. The team wouldn't be attacked for another few days at best, and well, they wouldn't exactly miss him if he were gone now, would they? Perfect chance to trail the figure. He waited till the genin had begun moving back towards the town, activated his Byakugan, and moved off in pursuit of the figure. They were quick. He was working fairly hard to keep up at a good speed, and he silently cursed that he might not be able to keep up. Although his reactions were quick, he was built to assassinate, not chase and fight up close. He forced himself to move onwards, knowing that this would allow him the chance to complete his secondary objective when the time was right. The figure wasn't expecting to be followed, and was taking a direct route towards the shoreline of the island nation. Naruto considered the fact that because Gato was blocking the shipping, it probably meant he had a base on the island. The dock warehouses came into view on the horizon, and Naruto smiled. Lots of shadows, lots of rooftops, tons of cover. He could really get to work here if he wanted to. And could get in. The wire fence around the perimeter would be a stubborn obstacle. The figure stopped running and pulled on the hunter-nine mask it had used before. It approached the compound's gates slowly and deliberately. The gates were opened, the figure walked in, and the gates were closed. Guards lined the towers, armed with bows and whatever equipment they used. They had every above-ground approach covered. Advancing in the day would be suicide. Naruto decided to sit and watch the compound until it was dark. The hours passed, as Naruto picked out guard routines and possible blind spots, trying to lip read when he had his Byakugan active. He kept it off mostly. After a while, it depleted too much chakra and caused him to get splitting headaches. He'd learned that the hard way after his first mission. The soft reds of the sunset began once again to appear on the horizon, and he stretched out his muscles. It was time to get to work. The days passed without note. The genin were training and seemed to have settled down a bit. Kakashi was back to full strength and ready to fight again. The nights, though, he felt the sensation he had felt before when he had been given a mission before. Even if there was no kill yet, Gato kept himself wrapped in layers of security and constantly had several guards around him, penetrating each layer, working out how to break each different protocol, working out hiding spots, weaknesses, exploitable holes. It was something he could do forever, learning the way the guards walked, their posture, their terrible misuse of language, their codes and slang. He was compiling a statistical list in his head of how to become one of these people. Learning phrases he could use in tight spots or if questioned too hard. He found it fascinating, a study that would be tested every night when he infiltrated. He was sure that he had finally worked it out. There was about a 1-minute window. It wasn't going to be dignified. It wouldn't be clean. But it would work. The only other way would be to just be invited in. He slipped out under the cover of dark and took up a watch position over the gate. The sun was rising again, a hazy red glow on the horizon. That mean rain later? Some might consider. Then he saw the figures walking out of the gates. The attack was this morning. A knot of anticipation formed in his stomach. He had never seen how the average shinobi fought, especially high-power ones. This would be fascinating. Although the accomplice would be a threat to the genin, he set off back for the village, outpacing the two figures, which moved with a slowness that belied their mission. He leapt through the trees at speed, heading straight for the village. Sometimes outright speed was needed as opposed to stealth. Panting slightly, he barreled through the open upstairs window of the house just as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the window. Kakashi sat up quickly. Naruto didn't waste any time. They're coming. Kakashi nodded. I'll wake my team and make sure they're ready. I want you to guard the house with a clone just in case anyone tries anything sneaky. I suspect Gato may try something after Zabuza, and want to be ready. The shadow clone was dispatched to the roof. How good are you in a scrap? In training I could hold my own against most sparring opponents, although against Zabuza's associate I may have difficulty. They are quicker than any opponent I have faced. Right. In which case pick your moment carefully and act as you see fit. I may not be your sensei, but I will say this. Those who abandon the mission are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are lower than trash. I expect you to step in to save my team when necessary, even if it means blowing your cover. Hi, we'll engage them at the bridge. Good luck. I will hold so the leaf may flourish. In the time it took for Kakashi to register those words, Naruto was heading out of the cover of the tree line near the bridge. He knew exactly where he was going to hide, having observed the bridge. It was good to plan ahead. He slipped into the hiding place he had prepared, and slid the crossbow into his hands. He felt once more the feeling he had felt on the way to the wave coursed through him in a sudden wave. It was good. It felt as though his nerves were being sparked into life with some new energy. He shifted to get rid of some of it, whatever it was mucking up his breathing. He performed a breathing exercise he had been taught when he had first shown aptitude for the bow. That had been 7 years ago. Lord Danzo had accompanied him to the armory to show Naruto all the weapons. He'd almost felt drawn to the weapon, and after being taught how to use it, had tried his first target exercise. He hit all the targets with the weapon, despite it being too big for him to really hold. Lord Danzo had brought over another one of his shinobi to help instruct Naruto, and for years he had worked with the man to improve his skills. 7 years on and there was no shinobi as good with the weapon as Naruto. His gloved hands ran tenderly over the smooth wood. The same bow as all those years ago. He never needed another one. He'd taken care of it. After the Hokage had treated it roughly, knocking it from his hands across the mission room floor, he had had to revarnish it and clean the mechanisms. It was his weapon, closer to a part of his anatomy than anything else. He looked down the sights and waited. It didn't take long for things to start happening. The mist began to creep, like a thin wispy hand from away to his left, where the shipyard was. It crept around trees and engulfed bushes in its wake. Blinded by the mist, Naruto shut his eyes and listened. The foxhole he had dug in preparation had been entirely passed over by the mist. It was big enough for him, roughly dug out of the dirt. The mist muffled the sound slightly, but he could hear the pre-battle conversation. That was something he would have to get used to. Why talk before the fight? What was the point? Soon afterwards, the sounds of combat began shortly afterwards. Naruto prepared himself for what could be his first direct engagement with an enemy shinobi. He found himself having to slow his breathing, the sensation of his limbs electrifying once more flooding through him as he prepared to move out. Once the enemies were entrenched in combat, he could intervene more easily. He found his hands itching to take hold of his weaponry, to get in and fight his foes whilst being able to see them in the eye. He squashed the thoughts. That was not his role. That would be like trying to use a vial of poison as a club. It would get broken and its contents wasted. No, his was the subtle role. His was the sharpened blade in the night. His was the genjutsu and the hidden strike. His was a role without glory, without honor. His was the task of getting the job done no matter the cost. He calmed himself and let his mind take over the situation. From the sound of it, Kakashi had left the protection of the builder and the associate to his genin squad whilst he fought Zabuza. It was a good plan. Getting involved in Kakashi's fight would be purposeless. The associate, on the other hand, he forced down the feeling that he needed to make that kill. After all, they were the first to ever survive when he had intended to kill someone, and had also been able to force his hand in a later meeting. Letting them live a third time would not be right. He moved from the bolt hole at speed, moving through the mist to the genin's fight. The chakra mist still had his Byakugan blind, but he could tell. The huge dome loomed into view before his eyes as he got closer, cloak whipping in the breeze as he ran. He caught the kunai that was thrown at him, and pulled down the hood as he turned to his aggressor. Leave! What is that dome? The pink-haired girl gawked at him. Who are you? Does it matter? What is in the dome? He studied it more closely. It was laced heavily with chakra, and seemed to glow like a pale blue-white sun before his Byakugan, completely overshadowing the mist. Sasuke-kun and the Baka are in the dome. He just jumped in before it closed up. The person in there is trying to kill them. Keep guarding the client. Despite the danger, Tazuna still was annoyed. I have a name, brat. How old are you? Who are you even? I don't care at the moment in time. None of your business. I am a ghost. The last few words came out of nowhere. But they worked. He inspected the dome. There were gaps between the giant hexagonal panels that made up the dome. He ran his hand over one of them, and wasn't too surprised to find it was made of ice. Definitely the associate. He tried to look through one of the gaps in the dome. The mist inside was thinner, but still clogged with chakra. He could vaguely make out the shapes of the two genin trying to ward off attacks fired in at them from all directions. He analyzed. The dome let people in, and didn't stop them from entering. Judging by the Simban needles sticking out of both genin inside, escape was made impossible by the associate. The mirrors were hard to destroy, being encased in ice, and the associate could travel between them at will. It was a very good attack strategy. Aside from the giant obvious, showy dome bit, it would be something he could use if he had the jutsu and bloodline. A mirror set up to escape to, and a mirror to escape through once the job was done. Leaving only water as a trace. Ways to stop it? He watched the associate appear in the mirror opposite his position, and then throw a few needles at the besieged genin, who tried to deflect them back to back. The Uchiha was having a better time of it, and Naruto was intrigued to see that his eyes now had the Sharingan. Even so, the associate was wearing them down. Both were panting badly, their injuries starting to get to them. He had to act fast, even if it meant a more drawn-out battle. He dove through the gap he was next to and into the dome. The genin saw him enter, deflecting the path of another wave of Saban with his cloak, using it as a shield. The dark gray cloth was ripped by the needles, but it did enough to stop the light projectiles from doing damage. The brown-haired one just stared at him, and only just got to his senses in time to mostly avoid a wave of Saban. Who are? Shut up and focus. I can sense where he is coming from before he reaches the mirror. Just block until I can get him. How are you going to do T? Shut up and block. But Naruto didn't bother giving an answer, using a kunai to stop the needles of ice the associate was using. The small residue chakra from the shaping let him see them more clearly. He had a plan. He actually had several plans, each ready for the next step this foe took. He swung round ready to fire his bow one-handed, but the brown-haired genin was in the way. This, he suspected, was something he might have to get used to. Teammates getting in the way. The Uchiha blocked most of another wave of Saban, taking one to the shoulder. Dobe, this guy will kill you if you don't speed up. Which one team? Either. The associate had paused in their attacks, and was circling them in the mirrors, wary of the crossbow. Naruto kept the Byakugan tracking the position in the mirrors. Less of a figure, more a mass of chakra that leapt from mirror to mirror, making it brighter than the others. He moved his hands in a series of signs out of sight of the other two genin. The less they knew about this the better. He held the final sign as he mentally crafted the genjutsu, and held it back until the right moment. The associate sat in one place too long. He sent the genjutsu into the mirror, and waited to see if it had worked. Hopefully they can't dispel the jutsu without ending their own jutsu. Why has he stopped attacking? Shut up. Must you always question? The Simban came at them again, the brown-haired genin taking another to the leg. Before he cried out in pain, Naruto stuffed the hem of his cloak into the boy's mouth. He leaned right down next to his ear and whispered as quietly as he could. Right now, the only way we can be tracked is by noise. So don't make any. Try and sneak out whilst you can. The brown-haired genin got the message and moved as quietly as they could towards the edge of the dome. Naruto watched through the thin inner mist to see the figure's response. Blinded by the genjutsu flooding the interior of the dome with shadowy darkness and unable to dispel it, the figure was hunting by sound. Given their mentor, it was something they were likely to be proficient at. The brown-haired figure was a few inches from a gap when they stepped on a twig. The nearest dome flared with chakra, and Naruto fired a bolt straight for it. The associate threw the Simban point blank into the genin, peppering him with needles. But they couldn't sense the bolt until they felt it impact. By which point, it was far too late. The steel bolt slammed into and cracked the mask, before puncturing the associate's face between the eyes. Blood ran from the wound as they fell to the ground, the ice mirrors melting swiftly as the jutsu ended. Naruto ran over to the brown-haired genin to check his injuries. He was alive, but the last salvo had hurt him badly. He turned to the pink-haired girl. You down here? Treat him. Now, but Sasuke-kun is more alive than your other teammate. Now, he didn't bother checking as he moved towards the sounds of Kakashi's fight. It came into view just as Kakashi ended it. The wet sizzling sound of a lightning-charged hand being withdrawn from a chest could be heard before Zabuza hit the ground. Kakashi wiped his hand absent-mindedly on his pants, as if he were cleaning something off them. The lightning-based jutsu meant that no such entrails existed, but he did it anyway. He assessed where he was physically. He was alive, a couple of cuts but nothing too bad. He was also badly exhausted. Only fighting Zabuza beforehand had allowed him last this long. If anyone else showed up he would be in trouble. The mist began to clear as the jutsu began to fade, and his heart sank as figures began entering his view from the bridge. He looked round for his team. Sakura was trying to get some life out of the two boys, and Tazuna was staring at the bridge with a grim expression on his face. Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Tazuna, to me. Looks like I'm the only one that can protect you now. The older man moved in behind him. How are you holding up? Well enough. Well enough to face down 200 thugs? Kakashi grimaced. The odds were heavily against him, and he was very much alone. Then he heard the mocking clap. At the back of the crowd, on a raised platform that was being rolled slowly forward so his short stature could be seen over his hired hands, Gato slapped pudgy hands together slowly and mockingly. Well done. You rid me of all my pay obstacles and leave me with an easy victory. Now, I am not without leniency. I am a gracious man. His hired goons chuckled. Kakashi found himself nauseous at the situation. Kill the bridge builder for me and I let you and your team live. I have no quarrel with Konoha, so I offer you the chance to live. Never. I tried. Lads, feel free to mete out whatever justice you feel like, to anyone you meet for the next few hours. Dark laughter erupted from the goons. Kakashi readied himself for a final push, readying tired and cramping limbs for one final push. He was fairly sure that if he was able to take out a good 20 of them quickly the rest would be a little too cautious, letting him take the advantage. Then Tazuna died. Haku had somehow come out of nowhere and sunk a Saban needle into his neck. There was blood and Tazuna was very, very still. Haku rose and walked towards the stunned crowd of mercenaries. Do not worry yourself with this fight, Konoha-san. Your mission has failed. The leaf wilts in autumn. Gato-sama, it appears my master fell during the fighting. I have nowhere to go for the moment, so is it possible we might retire to the hideout to celebrate our victory? With the builder dead it will be easy to maintain subjugation of wave. Gato stroked his chin in mock contemplation. Yes, Haku, we shall go back and celebrate your victory. I also have payment to give you, of course. The party of thugs departed to the boats and began to return to the shipping yards of their hideout. Kakashi dropped to one knee in exhaustion before checking on Tazuna. He reached a pair of fingers down to his neck and removed the Saban needle. Then he checked his pulse. It was there. Weak, but there. The older man groaned. What just happened? I'll explain when everyone is safe. Right now, I suspect Gato is in more trouble than he thinks. Chapter 7, A Feast of Problems. Naruto concentrated. He was lucky that the associate, Haku, Gato had called him, was supposed to be in mourning. It made the fact he didn't have to talk much easier. Hinged into his form, he did talk with Haku's voice. It was difficult wearing someone else's voice though. The words still formed the same but sounded wrong. He was also glad for the mask, something he'd quickly stripped from the corpse when he'd realized the situation. The fact it was cracked from his shot seemed to add to the authenticity of his fight. He could add exhaustion to the list of reasons he wouldn't be talking much, so he found himself sitting in one of the warehouses that had been turned into a dirty makeshift banqueting hall surrounded by low-life thugs. Next to him was the suited Gato, hands clasped on a fine goblet which he drank heavily from. The victory celebration was going on long into the night. Sake and other strange drinks had been produced by the barrel by Gato, to raucous cheers to his hired thugs. Then a great quantity of roasted meats had appeared. As the drink flowed and food was consumed, the common thugs were entertained by a variety of ladies wearing a bare minimum of clothing. Naruto didn't fully understand what was going on, and waited. He was improvising. Before he would have gone in quietly and killed the man off in his sleep, but he'd been forced to improvise. He'd never had to do that before. He looked down at his plate. The food barely touched and tried to concentrate. A greasy hand took his in what he assumed was meant to be a comforting way. Haku, Zabuza was a fine man. It must have been hard losing him. He was my master. Without him I feel purposeless. The hand patted his own again. It was like being engulfed in grease. He felt somewhat sick. The man's breath was horrendous, and he dared not look to see the man's face. You're fully welcome to stay with my company until you know what to do. You're useful, a real killer like your master was. Come, I wish to discuss my proposals further away from my men. Needless to say they'd be jealous if they heard the offer I was going to make. He allowed his hand to be taken as Gato led him from the room and out towards his quarters. A couple of brutes with huge weapons parted to let him through, sharing a dark chuckle. Naruto found himself alone with the vile man. He could unhinge now and just be done with it, but timing was everything. Gato lit a cigar and blew a huge cloud of smoke into the air. The lighting was dimmer than he expected for the gangster's quarters. Then he realized a potential reason. The thought sickened him as the man walked slowly round him, like a shark circling its prey. You know, Zabuza protected you more than you know. He treated you like a child, like a father might protect his daughter. Naruto tried to hold himself together. He could feel his hand twitching, wanting to become himself again and kill the man before him. He felt hatred welling up. He had never felt anything like it before. Sometimes he felt a mild annoyance when people were stupid and did stupid things. This felt entirely different. If the annoyance was like a buzzing that didn't go away, then this was an inferno that seared inside him. It must have been a lonely life for such a sweet young girl as yourself. Perhaps you would like me to comfort you on this dark night? His hands crept round his shoulders and tried to give a reassuring massage. It felt like being clamped by a pair of fat claws. He felt the hand descend down his chest. He knew he had to wait as long as possible before killing the man. Don't worry, I can be like a father to you. I'll take care of you. Stay with me tonight, and I can make it all feel better. The hand kept descending as the other tried to undo the clothing at the back. He felt the man's hideous breath on his neck. That tore it. In the space of half a second, Naruto unhinged, drew the tanto from his back and slashed Gato's throat out. Gato didn't even have time to look surprised before the blood loss and shock killed him, and he fell to the floor. Naruto felt the edges of his cloak get slightly wet in the blood from the floor as he planned his next move. Simply killing Gato wouldn't be enough right now. Security would still be tight. There was no way out other than the front door. More of this improvising stuff. He shoved Gato's corpse under the bed and rolled the expensive but now ruined carpet around him as he did so. That hid most of the evidence. Then he hinged again, taking on the form of Gato. He thumped a table, and then overturned it into a filing cabinet, causing it to clatter to the ground before he cursed filthily. The guards outside his quarters burst in, weapons drawn. What's wrong, boss? The girl. Did you stop the fucking girl? What girl? Naruto fought the man's vocal cords into a roar. The one that just escaped me. She addled my head with a ninja trick then ran out. Did you two idiots not see her? What the hell do I pay you for? Find her and bring her to me. The guards were not paid to think, and headed off into the compound for the missing Haku. He dehinged again, and pulled the carpet-rolled corpse from under the bed and put it back roughly where it had been. Taking an ugly, brutish weapon that he kept in the room, he blooded it in Gato's neck then left it next to the body. He ghosted out of the room and hinged again. In the form of one of the guards, he ran as best he could towards the banquet hall. It was difficult to run in a form you weren't used to, and the guard was nearly twice his height, and at least 3 times his weight. He wondered how people this size coped with having no subtlety. Briefly as he prepared his shout, he burst through the doors as loudly as he could and fell onto a table, sending it crashing to the ground, food and drink flying everywhere. He rose. The commotion caused making him the center of attention. He fought off the feeling he had been somehow discovered to use the fact he had everyone's attention. Someone's killed the boss. We went off chasing the stupid girl and someone killed him. There was commotion. Men who before had been dancing and singing as comrades eyed one another suspiciously. It didn't take long for accusations to start flying between the men. It took not much longer after that for the first punch to be thrown, and then weapons were drawn. The entertaining girls screamed as a bloodthirsty melee began. Fueled by tensions between the hired thugs, and the liberal amounts of alcohol they had imbibed, the fight escalated to contain the whole compound. After all, some of them had realized that with the boss dead, the quickest way to make money would be to grab lots and run. Of course, by that time, Naruto had unhinged again and was making his way out of the compound. He kept to the shadows of the crates, watching the fighting spread throughout the compound. Some of the men were quietly looting buildings and trying to escape, whilst other men went around trying to restore order. Then there were the few who just wanted to see the world run red with blood. Naruto slipped out under the fence surrounding the compound and made his way back up to the rise he had used to scope out the compound in the first place. The angry shouts and commotion could be heard from the compound, and someone had started a fire in one of the warehouses. That was regrettable, but he had been improvising. He took stock. He had made one direct kill in the heat of the moment, and crippled the strength of the thugs indirectly. Gato was dead. Overall, successful. He suspected Kakashi would be less pleased. He regathered his thoughts as he moved through the trees. The anger had been new, except it felt more intense than that. Then there was another feeling. The happiness, that was the word, he had used to describe completing a mission was there, but it felt different. It was better. It was as if something about his earlier feelings had been sated. It felt right. He relived the kill moment, working out if it could have been done better. He found himself getting a rough feeling, like the roar of a great beast when the blade turned the man's throat to paste and kept going. A sense of rightness when he saw the pathetic corpse his blow had left. It felt, gah. He needed new words for this. Or someone to talk to about these emotions he was feeling. Kakashi left Sakura looking after her sleeping teammates. Both would live, that much was certain. Both would definitely be sore for a few days. He walked through Tazuna's house, past the room where Tazuna himself was just about sitting up. Naruto's needle had been pretty superfluous, but a neck wound was a neck wound. The subtle knockout blow had genuinely concussed a man. That had been a bit overboard, but then again, Naruto had been improvising. Probably. At least he hoped so, because having that as a plan was frankly insane. He himself was walking fine, the cuts from his fight with Zabuza more or less healed. He drew out his book and walked out of the house, heading for the shoreline. He glanced briefly at where the bridge building team was working. Progress was going well. The bridge would soon be finished. There was a thin pall of smoke on the horizon too. He sat at the lakeside near the tree line, where the battle had taken place. He heard the ruffling of a cloak behind him. "You're back. Is Gato dead?" "Yes. You do realize you broke your mission protocol, right? What if a bandit or two had managed to sneak up on Tazuna or my team whilst you were distracted? It wouldn't have been logical for them to have. Plus I stopped the town being destroyed and the builder being killed. You nearly killed him. If I wanted to kill him I would have killed him." "Well, yes, that's what you do. You did well, although a little more warning next time would be appreciated. I'm not used to working with others. They're sloppy and get in the way." Kakashi sighed. This was something he'd been worried about. "Sakura has no idea what happened in the dome. All I know is you went in, killed Haku and left Sasuke and alive. The other one made a mistake whilst escaping. I think you used him as a distraction. That doesn't sit well with me. I wanted him to escape. When he made the mistake, I capitalized." Kakashi found himself wanting to raise his voice. He realized that would probably be a bad idea. Naruto's voice hadn't changed at all. It was still flat and emotionless. "We'll see. You know Sakura isn't entirely sure you actually exist. You didn't identify yourself more than your headband, neither do Anbu. Knowledge is power. You're not Anbu, you're a 13-year-old shinobi of Konoha." There was a brief silence. "How did you kill Gato?" "I assume you used your disguise as Haku to get inside the base?" "It wasn't my original plan, but yes. I had to hold the henge for a few hours." Kakashi whistled under his breath. "Good control, not just the henge. Most ninja can do that for a long time. The acting. For someone with no understanding of humanity, you know how to mimic people well. It was fortunate that the associate was a reserved character." "Haku, you mean?" "Yes, I refer to her mentally as the associate. You don't like names, do you? They have some use, but never understood why we need them. Numbering would be more efficient. It's to do with personality and being human. I thought being human had to do with our DNA. It's more than that." "How?" "Difficult to explain." "So you can't prove your point?" "It's like proving the wind." "That's easy. Look, it's true and just leave it at that." "That's illogical. Deal with it." "We're off topic. You killed him without implicating Konoha, which is good. Naruto processed that for later. Am I required further for the mission? How depleted would you say Gato's forces are?" "Well, Gato is dead, and a mass brawl broke out after I broke the news. I saw at least a dozen dead, several dozen more fighting, and quite a bit of looting. I'd say they're either dead, dying, or running off with the money. A small number might remain, but nothing significant. Then you're probably done here. That said, as your superior, I'm going to pull rank and keep you here." "What mission do you have for me?" "No mission. I just want you to rest, relax, and possibly have a full night's sleep. I can see your face, even if it is hidden in shadows. You haven't slept properly for at least a week, maybe more. Maybe you never have. You also smell of blood and dirt. Also, I'd like you to talk to my team." "What kind of mission is that?" "Well, it's partly to get you talking to people in a non-mission context some more, and partly so they get some idea that someone their own age is a better ninja than them by some distance. I doubt I could beat any of them in a straight spar. Give it a go. One last thing. I showed you my face, which is something not many have seen. Consider that a sign of my trust. I would like to see your stomach." Naruto paused. That was definitely classed as something he didn't trust people with the knowledge of. That was also something he hadn't expected the man to know. He briefly recalled the hazy days of his young childhood, of the looks the orphanage owners had given him. Some muttered words too, then slightly older, being talked to by someone who seemed to know him inside out despite being a stranger to him. Lord Danzo. He had no idea who he was then. Then the procedures. The pain. He realized he had been silent for a minute. Well, a sign of trust? A sign that you and I understand each other on a deeper level, that we are in some way alike? That I can expect you to never betray me? That's what trust is. By the way, that's the longest non-mission related sentence I've ever heard you speak. Naruto unfastened the cloak and pulled up the tight black shirt he wore underneath. Kakashi's eye took in all the details of the seal. It looked like, are there 2 seals? Yes, I see. The outer one looks particularly formidable. It is. I won't ask more. Naruto had the shirt over his chest and cloak around him quickly. Right, go and complete your mission. Preferably the bath first. Seriously. You smell horrific. Hi. And Naruto had moved off into the trees, a black moving figure on the grass, and then gone into the trees. Kakashi returned his attention to his book, enjoying the feel of the sun. Sakura sat watching over her teammates. Well, one of them at least. She was staring at Sasuke's face, seemingly a bit lost in his face. The room darkened for a moment, and she looked towards the door. It hadn't moved. Then the window. It was open, but she didn't think it had. Then she threw a glance over her shoulder and screamed for the few moments it took for Naruto's gloved hands to slap her in the face. Shh. They're sleeping. She swung a fist at the sudden black-cloaked intruder which he caught. I'm the shinobi from the fight. He didn't entirely understand the look on her face, and acted quickly to catch the other fist that swung at him. Stop it! Why are you attacking me? Sakura did her best not to shout and failed pretty badly. You slapped me. You were going to wake them. They need rest. He neatly trapped the leg Sakura tried to kick him with and locked it with one of his own. The combination of arm locks and the leg entrapment brought them close. Naruto took in the experience. It was uncomfortable, and she smelled too nice. Let me go, when you stop trying to hurt me. This is the second time I've met you and you've tried to kill me both times. Is this how I'm meant to grade people my age? What? No. 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 Just, let go of me. He relinquished the holds and backed off. She rubbed her limbs where the holds had hurt her. There was a silence as she looked him over. Still in the same combination of blacks and grays as the same night, he looked kinda shabby in the light. Shabby but tense though. She gave up trying to see the majority of his face under the hood, and used all her senses. Primarily smell. Why do you smell of dirt and blood? Killed someone after lying on the ground. Didn't you wash your clothes? Try on a new set? Didn't bring a spare. I did try washing. What? Didn't bring a spare, but I did try washing. Sakura just stared at him in a mix of horror and wonderment. Can I see your face? Yes. Well, show me then. He dropped the hood. She recoiled slightly. What shampoo do you use? What's shampoo? What? She said that loudly enough that his ears rang a little. Sure, no shouting. Sorry, what are you? Human. Are you related to Kakashi-sensei? No. But the eye patch? I lost an eye. How? Training. She shivered. He was just not right. There was more silence. Naruto decided that he would try starting the conversation. So what's your favorite form of training? She looked at him as if he had suggested unimaginable horror. None. I like spending time with Sasuke-kun. He's so perfect and he's going to be a great ninja and be the best, and he's so much better than everyone else, especially the other baka. What do you like about Sasuke? He's so perfect and dreamy and handsome and strong and awesome and… Naruto zoned out. His mind was recoiling in horror at what was happening. Words he had never heard before went into his mind which for once struggled to try and catalog them all. He realized he hadn't been listening at all. Why? He just is. Don't be like the baka. Baka trains harder than you. Only because he was the dead last. The dead last? But he's alive. She rolled her eyes. The worst in our graduation class. The most useless. There was a groan from the direction of the sleeping mats. The brown-haired genin had opened his eyes slightly and tilted his head in their direction. Sakura-chan, quieter please. She looked slightly embarrassed. The brown-haired boy looked towards Naruto. You, yes. Me. Did you kill Haku? Yes. He nearly killed you. Couldn't you have just disabled Haku? Yes, but he was an enemy and a threat. You didn't need to kill him. Killing is my job. You didn't need to. The boy tried to rise, but his injuries quickly caught up with him. He gave a grunt of pain before he lay back down. Silly baka, don't strain yourself. Tsunami will shout at you if you rip your bandages again. But Sakura-chan, I have to train. Naruto observed the exchange. Baka seemed to be trying to get on her good side, whilst she showed no such restraint. From his perspective, she seemed dominant, and was giving him a telling off. It was like watching one of his old instructors deliver a punishment to a failed exercise, only without the immense physical pain. But there was something different again. Like it didn't matter for some reason and was actually positive. Other people were illogical. There was another groan as Sakura's voice rose a bit too far. Dobe, Sakura, shut up. Sasuke-kun. Sakura hugged his prone form, and even Naruto could tell he was unhappy about this. He grunted, pushing her away. The grunt was very obviously from pain, but she seemed to think it was impressive, and cooed over him. Naruto looked over at the brown-haired one, who looked at him with an odd expression on his face before making an odd gesture by poking his finger into his mouth and retching. Naruto just about understood the gesture. It lacked all the subtlety and grace of the root sign language, even if there was not specific code for that makes me want to vomit. It was rough and crude, and understandable. Are you okay? Just fine. The way he said it was different, but if he said he was fine by Naruto's guess. Realizing there wasn't much more for him to do there, he disappeared through the window. The brown-haired genin coughed loudly to get the attention of his talkative and silent teammates. Sakura-chan, who is that guy? She thought for a moment. I don't know his name. He said he was a ghost when I first met him. You mean you just talked to him and didn't even ask his name? Sakura readied her fist for a much easier strike when Sasuke made another dismissive grunt. Her attention diverted. Her target was able to drift back to sleep.